Good morning, good morning, good morning. Yes, it is still morning. I just glanced at my clock because it's not quite 12 yet. I just wanted to hop on real quick and plug for Impact Youth Conference 2018. Yes, it is that time again. We are preparing to have an awesome time with our youth, and we have a lot of great things in store for them as it pertains to every worship experience. We are excited because we have some awesome speakers coming through this year. Pastor Michael Cross, Youth Pastor Michael Cross, Youth Pastor Jessica Jones, and Minister Dominique Epps. They are all going to be speakers for our Impact Youth Conference. We got games, we got giveaways, we got awesome worship. We have Slater Joel, we have Latoya Barnes, we have Kenny Mayo and company who are coming to do praise and worship, and a host of other ministries throughout the city of Suffolk will be joining us this week as we lift up the name of Jesus with our youth. Listen, you do not want to miss Impact Youth Conference this year. I don't care where you're watching from. If you're in the Hampton Roads area, anywhere near, pastors, youth pastors, please bring your youth. Hey, Sis Antoinette. I see you, Pastor Hines. Hey, Lanika. I see you all. Thank you for joining me. Listen, Lanika, you are in Franklin. I know that's a little bit of a hike, but get anybody that you know that's young people, nieces, nephews, cousins, bring them to Impact Youth Conference this year. It's an awesome time every year. The presence of the Lord meets us every year, and we're just expecting him to do even greater things through our youth conference this week. We recognize that it's not about us, but it's about the kingdom of God being expanded and God being glorified. So we want to see you out this week. We're kicking it off tomorrow with our youth day, Sunday, July the 15th at our 8:30 and 11:30 a.m. worship experiences. I will be preaching the 8:30 worship. Pastor Donnie is preaching the 11:30 worship. Then Monday through Wednesday, starting at 7 p.m. sharp, we are starting every night at 7. We're starting with worship. We're starting with game. We have games. We'll have a host of things for our young people to enjoy. And really, the purpose of this conference is to encourage and empower our youth. They face so much. They deal with so much. And it's important for them to realize that they are not forgotten, and to realize that God has purpose for them as well. Our theme this year is identity. So we're going to be really focusing on identity, who we are in Christ, who God has created us to be. So you don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. So I just want to encourage you this week, this Monday, starting Monday through Wednesday, we're going to be having nightly worship experiences, Monday through Wednesday. That's the 16th through the 18th. Tomorrow, the 16th through the 17th. I'm sorry. Tomorrow is our kickoff with our youth day, so you do not want to miss it. Big ups to Bishop Clarence B. Russell and Pastor Jamie B. Russell, the pastors of St. Paul Baptist Church in the city of Suffolk, who are so supportive of all that we do to be a blessing to the kingdom, be a blessing to the youth. Hey, Sandy. So just bring out all the youth, anybody you can think of. It can be your nieces, nephews, it can be cousins, it can be friends, whoever. Everybody's invited. So we just want to see you out. We want to see you in support of what God is doing in the lives of our young people. Even if you're not in Suffolk, please bring your youth, and adults, you're welcome as well. We don't just limit youth to those who are 0 to 18 or 0 to 20s. Everybody can be young at heart. So please, we encourage you to come. Bring your expectation of God to do something great in your life as well as in the lives of our young people. I want to thank you for joining me, and I'm looking forward to seeing you this week at Impact Youth Conference 2018. Is going to be an awesome time. Worship, word, and fun. So we look forward to you joining us. Peace and blessings. Lady Fran is signing off. Bless you. Good morning, everybody. Well, it's afternoon now. This is Lady Fran. I am hopping on very quickly for a few minutes. I'm actually headed to a ladies but a ladies conference. So just wanted to hop on real quick and just share a few things with you about some things I've been learning. recently I have been in a season of not walking in fear about things. So one of my biggest things is don't be afraid of trying new things. Don't be afraid to branch out and do some different things that you may not be used to doing. As a result, I challenged myself to learn how to swim. Well, you may say, well, you're 30 years old. Why are you just now learning how to swim? It just wasn't something that was emphasized when we were growing up. It just wasn't something that we learned to do. So I decided that as an adult, I wanted to learn how to swim. So for the past 5 weeks, I have been taking swim lessons at the Y. And that was my first push, just overcoming. If there was fear, I didn't feel like I had a fear of it, but if there was fear, overcoming that, not allowing anything to keep me from learning how to do something new. Another big motivator for me was my brother's passing. As some of you may know, we have a huge family. There's 7 of us growing up. And my brother Vincent passed away in 2011 as a result of drowning. So that's another big push for me, is learning how to swim, kind of like in honor of him. But I really believe that had he known how to swim, he would still be with us. So I want to encourage you today to not be afraid to try something new. Don't be fearful. Don't even allow your own. Thanks, Pastor Hines. Yes. Good morning, Miss Deborah. Hey, Mr. Linwood. Hey, Eb. Hey, Miss Melissa. Good morning. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I am learning how to swim. So I have like 3 more classes left. And by November 4th, I will be an amateur swimmer. So, the plan is to continue it once the new classes come around again in the new year. So like learning some more advanced swimming skills. But I just want to encourage everybody this morning, don't allow fear to keep you from doing anything. Even if you've had bad experiences with things in the past, don't be afraid to try it again because of a past experience. Always be willing to try. Hey, Lane. Always be willing to try something new. Challenge yourself in a way that you've not challenged yourself before. Hey, Ronnie. So that's my encouragement for this morning. Yeah, I keep saying morning. It's afternoon. Hey, y'all. It's afternoon. I know. But it feels like morning to me. Good morning. Good afternoon, Jasmine. Hey, Sis Angela. So just be encouraged today. Overcome fears. Don't allow past experiences. Don't allow what you've seen other people go through, or how things turned out for other people, or maybe how even certain outcomes have arisen in your life as a result of trying something and then it didn't work the way you thought it was going to work, or it left a bad taste in your mouth, or whatever the reason was that you didn't try it again before. Hey, Shay. Don't let that keep you from trying again. If you don't get it right the first time, if you don't are not able to do it the way you thought you would do it before, try it again. Get up, try it again. If you start doing something and it's not working, don't quit. Keep on going. My pastor just preached a few weeks ago about do it again. The topic was do it again. If it doesn't work, go harder, try harder. Push yourself, strengthen those areas that may be weaker for you. Don't be afraid to try something new. So good morning, Miss Luanda. Afternoon. Hey, Tanya. I'm just wrapping up, just talking about not being fearful. Be willing to try something new. Push yourself to try something new. Peace. Love y'all. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. I am Fran. I am very excited that you're here with me on this beautiful Monday morning. And for those of us who may be having a little bit of a challenge getting rolly this morning, one of the things that's helped me is to be thankful for having another day to do the things that I need to do, even if it's rough getting started. So I'm thankful for you coming on and joining me. So I'm going to give a few more people an opportunity to come on. Good morning, Candace. Good morning, Lisa. I want to go ahead and ask you to invite people that you think may want to tune in. Today's topic is family secrets and mental health. Family secrets and mental health. So today's topic is very important. As we look at the state of our world, as we look at family cycles, we see cycles of abuse within our families. We see cycles of mental illness within our families, mental health challenges within our families. So today, we want to talk about how that impacts, this family secrets impact mental health. And we want to talk about how we can help people to overcome challenges that they may have had as a result of carrying a family secret. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started with those that are with us, and hopefully some more people will join us. So today's topic is, again, family secrets and mental health. So we're going to be talking about this topic from two different articles. I'm going to be sharing two different articles today, information from two different articles, and one of the authors is Susan Krauss Whitbourne, Dr. Susan Krauss Whitbourne, and Dr. Dita Oliker. So these articles were found on Psychology Today, and they're by those two authors. So if you want to go and look up that information a little bit more in depth after we finish sharing today, I like to share the resources so that you're able independently to go back and look at this information and see how it applies to you and your family. So we have all heard the term, what goes on in this house stays in this house. Particularly those who may come from African American families. You don't tell your business outside of the house. There may be total chaos. There may be utter and complete chaos going on in your house. There may be all sorts of things that are harmful or that somebody else really does need to know about, but you're told, don't tell anybody. It's not anybody else's business what goes on in this house or in this family. And then there are sometimes consequences implemented as a result of somebody sharing something that was told to them not to share. So the basis, let's dive right in and talk about the basis for family secrets is the desire for family members to keep negative information out of the public eye. So the basis for family secrets is to keep other people from looking badly at your family, potentially. So, and if people within the family find out about this family secret, then it's only on a need to know basis that people find out about certain things that have happened in the family. So it's thought that, certain family secrets, they really don't have that big of an effect on my life personally. That's so-and-so, that's their thing. Even though we are in the same family, that's their thing over there. This secret has to do with them over there. But what happens is, though, it could impact you later down the line. And so some of the things that are kept as family secrets in families are a parent's extramarital affairs, a parent or a family member who is now addicted to a prescription drug, Or there could be a person who is known as the family drunk. We don't really talk about that person and their behaviors. We just know how to act when they come around. There's an example that's given in one of the articles about the drunk uncle. Everybody knows that, he can't have too much to drink, and it's a holiday, so he gonna get his drink on anyway. We already know he's been having this issue for years. We don't really need to talk about the fact that he is a drunk, or we don't need to talk about possibly what caused him to even be at the place where he resorts to drinking alcohol. So there may be something that particular person or family member is dealing with themselves that caused them to be the family drunk, that nobody has addressed because of a family secret. So other issues that could be leading to family secrets being kept is the suicide of a family member, a family member's mental illness, a child being conceived before marriage. That's a big hot topic in a lot of families. Sometimes children are led to believe that their both parents are their biological parents, when in fact that child was born prior to that relationship becoming a marriage. So that can be a family secret. A sibling being a member of an illegal group, like a gang or something like that. A child may know that their brother or their sister is a part of a gang, and they are told, you better not tell mom and dad, or this is what's going to happen to you. So that's a family secret. This is a hot topic, and this is what I call a hot family secret. Being sexually assaulted by a family member or a family friend. So this leads to the idea that even though some family secrets may not directly impact you, the closer that secret gets to you and the more it starts to impact you, there's this involvement of feelings of shame, regret, frustration, and those feelings can be hard to deal with. I especially like to highlight the issue of being assaulted by a family member or a friend. And one of the things that I have seen in families that has happened with regard to this particular family secret is that this person is often somebody that everybody looks up to. This is a person that would never do this to anybody. They're so nice, they're so kind, they're so giving, they're so loving, but yet they are the person that has indeed been the perpetrator with regard to a sexual, inappropriate sexual contact, whether it's rape or molestation within the family. And some children back in the day, and even now it's happening, some children is on the hush. They were born out of inappropriate sexual interaction between them and between their parent and a family member that is close. So the uncle that is told, the uncle that was really your dad is, the uncle that everybody kind of like loves and looks up to is your dad, but your mom is his niece. So that type of thing. So we got to be mindful of those types of secrets. Let's talk about how family secrets also spill over to our children. Children require a lot of nurturing. They require a lot of attention, and we have to be so very mindful of how the impact of keeping a family secret is hard on a child. Also, not only is it hard on a child, but some parents have family secrets regarding their children. And sometimes it's the child has done something that's inappropriate or unhealthy, or that could possibly bring shame to the family name. And the parent has a tendency to blame themselves for possibly failing their child in some way. And they feel pressure to keep the information that they know about their child away from the public spotlight. And if this secret were to come out, Let's talk about what happens if you don't tell it. You know, this secret were to come out, then the people, they will feel that their child is being judged. So let's move a little bit further into what happens if you don't tell it. So family secrets are demanding. Like, it takes a lot to keep a family secret. In some cases, it's found that a child may know a family secret, and in others, sometimes the child is able to sense that something is not quite right and that things are being hidden. So we have to give our children, when it comes to these family secrets, we have to give our children a little bit more credit than we do, and stop acting like we're shielding them from something because they know. These children, we live in a generation where children are very much more exposed to things at a quicker age than we were, based on technology, social media, things of that nature. And based on what they see, sometimes they're made privy to signs that they should look out for in their families. Maybe something they've seen on the internet reminds them of something that's going on in their family. Maybe they watch a show and something that's happening in the show reminds them of something that's happening in their family. So even though no one has directly told this child that this has occurred or that has occurred, that child is very much aware that something is not quite right within their family system. So there comes this element of conspiracy, a silence among the family members. And there's this, with the conspiracy, there's this idea that it would be shameful if this came out. If this is known to the public, how much would that shame our family? If people knew that our uncle was the drunk, if people knew that my auntie was the one who committed suicide, if people knew that my child actually has been addicted to drugs or has had this mental health issue, everybody already knew. Within the family, everybody can kind of make observations. If your child is dealing with some type of mental health issue or challenge, or if there's another family member that's dealing with some type of mental health issue or challenge, let's be for real. Most of us can tell when something is not quite functioning right with a person. We can all tell, but yet there's no conversation about it. There's no discussion about it. There is no mention about it at all. Like, everybody keeps it on the hush. That can be very harmful. That can be extremely harmful because it's already known. So everybody is walking around on eggshells. It's known in some way, even if it's a sense that something is wrong. So children know. And one of the effects of this don't ask, don't tell kind of policy that we have within our family is fear and stress. You wonder why sometimes kids come to school and they are withdrawn. They don't talk a lot. The one article gives an example of a child who, when he's called on in class to answer a question, is fearful of raising his hand because of what might be asked of him. It could be something that was going on within his family, and the question that's being asked, it reminds him of something that's happening in his family. Now he's feeling fear and stress, and he's kind of like, in response to the teacher's question, maybe kind of like stuttering, or maybe silent, not really wanting to say anything for fear that they will give away that family secret. And they're holding on to this stress, and some kids are acting out behaviorally because they have this stress that they're carrying around with them. No, people have told them, don't tell, don't say anything. So when they get to school or they go other places and other kids are doing certain things and they want to be a part of it and they see it, they're like, no, I don't want to get too involved. I don't want to get too close to people because I don't want to accidentally slip up and tell the family secret. So keeping a family secret takes its toll. And it can take its toll in the form of mental illness. So we got to be mindful of that. Like those children that may be dealing with anxiety or depression, something may have happened to them. Maybe they were the victim of a sexual assault or molestation, and they were told don't tell it, so they hold it in. They might become withdrawn. So you have to be we have to be keeping an eye on those types of things, and find out what's going on with our children. If they're bubbly and they're outgoing and all of a sudden they're not, if they're, typically pretty happy but they're irritable, now they don't want to be bothered, these types of things, family secrets, can lead to them becoming that way. They don't always have a good outlet or a place where they can talk to somebody about these things. And children should really be able to talk to their parents about these things, but sometimes the parents are the ones who are asking them to keep these things disclosed, so they don't have an outlet. They don't have anybody that they can unload on or talk to about what's going on with them internally that could be leading to anxiety and depression for them. And let's talk about, so we talked about what happens if you keep secrets within your family to yourself. So let's talk about what happens, or what could potentially happen, if you tell it. So one of the things that could happen is a stigma. And we've talked a lot about stigmas as it pertains to mental illness and mental health, and how people don't like to talk about people's mental illnesses. People don't like to talk about what it's going to take to help take care of somebody who has a mental illness. People don't want to talk about, that person getting the help that they need. People don't want to talk about what is actually happening to a person. Sometimes people are dealing with mental illnesses and they need the support. Always, if you're dealing with a mental illness, you need the support of your family, you need the support of your friends. But there's this fear that within families, if we tell people what's going on with you, even though people pretty much already can tell that something is a little different about how you function, there's this fear of a stigma. Telling, like, for example, the article gives this example of telling people outside of your family as well, like telling your employer. So sometimes there's a fear of, what if I lose my job, or what if my child loses their job? What if somebody finds out I have a mental illness? And this is especially true of, people who may be considering serving our country by going into the military. There's a lot of safeguards in place as far as who can serve and who cannot. And one of them, unfortunately and fortunately in some cases, because, there are some mental illnesses that do require that you not, that going into the military would not be a viable option or a healthy option for you or anybody else. So, but unfortunately, there's a fear that if we tell somebody that we know has a mental illness, or that if I tell my employer that I have a mental illness, will I be fired? But there is the Americans with Disability Act that makes discrimination illegal. Now, there's a difference between discrimination and safety. So let's make that very clear. Sometimes some jobs will not accept people working with certain mental illnesses because there is a safety factor involved with them working in that field. But otherwise, there is an Americans with Disability Act which makes discrimination illegal. So that you would think that would help people to be more open about their mental health challenges, but in a lot of cases, or in a lot of things, it does not help. So also, parents who may reveal their child's psychological disorders may face similar possibilities for stigma, especially from schools. A lot of times, parents don't want to tell schools that I've had the experience that in working in the in-home sector, that parents did not want to talk to the school about their child's mental health issues for fear that they would be stigmatized instead of helped. So that's a reason why sometimes parents are not willing to share if their child has a mental health issue. So families may be reluctant to share. Thank you, Casey. Now, we talked a little bit about a lot of things, so I don't want to just make this long and drawn out for no reason, but I really believe that addressing how our family secrets and things of that nature can impact mental health. One of the some of the takeaways that I want you all to kind of dwell on and think about and possibly make some changes to are the following. The impact of family secrets can carry over into our adulthood in the forms of anxiety, depression, and trauma. They may even lead to suicide attempts. Think about that. How family secrets can lead to diagnoses of mental health disorders. Just the fact that you've had to carry that secret all of your life. How that has impacted your mental health as an adult. What are you dealing with mentally right now that is the result of a family secret? Think about that. Children were not meant to keep family secrets. I will say it again. Children are not meant to keep family secrets. Family secrets can lead to lifelong trauma and people getting stuck at certain developmental stages. You ever seen an adult that's in their 50s and 40s, but they act like a teenager? Think about, maybe there was a family secret that they were told to keep. Maybe there was something traumatic that happened to them as a teenager. And maybe they shared it with somebody in their family, and their family told them to keep it a secret. Don't tell anybody else. Think about how that impacts them as an adult getting stuck at a certain stage. This one here is one that I am very passionate about, and I'm vehement about it. I'm vehemently stating that this cannot happen. This is one of those things that I'm really going to emphasize because I feel like it's very important. The family name is not more important than family healing. I will say that one again too. The family name is not more important than the family healing. Open and honest discussions in our families about wrongdoings or little known things can lead to healing. That's what family therapy is for. Like, there's family therapy. There's, even if you don't go to an outpatient therapist, and have like a family session or family sessions to address certain things that have gone on in your family that cause hurt or pain, or some type of mental dysfunction, it needs to happen within your family. There needs to be some type of family meeting. There needs to be some type of dialogue, some type of opening up of things, because what's happening in our families are these cycles of abuse, cycles of mental illness. I was having a discussion with one of my colleagues this morning on the way in, and I was sharing with her what I was going to talk about today, and the issue of somebody in the family being a perpetrator of maybe a sexual assault or something. Is this needs to be a conversation, because what happens is more than one person has likely experienced that same type of trauma within the family. Generations of people have experienced the same type of trauma, sometimes at the hands of the same person or by a different person within the same family. Nobody's talking about it. So we have generations of people in families that have been abused in some way, emotionally abused, physically abused, sexually abused, been exposed to substance abuse, and nobody's saying anything. Nobody is saying anything. And that's not okay. We have and we wonder why we have families of people that are dealing with mental illness. Whole families of people depressed. Whole families of people that are overly anxious. Whole families of people who are dealing with their own personal traumas because nobody would say anything. So we got these cycles of abuse and cycles of mental illness occurring generationally. It's not okay. We have to have these conversations. As uncomfortable as it is, as bad as it may feel in the moment to share it or to talk about it, we need to have these conversations because we have generations of people who are dealing with mental illness or challenges, and generations of people within families dealing with traumas that happen to them. And sometimes the perpetrator is the same person that did it to them. Like if the child reports it to their parent, the parent is feeling that because it happened to them at the hands of the same person. Maybe it was physical abuse. Maybe it was emotional abuse. Sometimes we forget the toll of our words, how within families we talk negatively about different family members and how the toll of our words can affect people, the toll that it takes on our families. Let's be mindful of these things. Let's not keep family secrets. And I'm just as I was just as susceptible to family secrets as the next person. But I think about how those secrets would impact my children when I have my own children, when I have my own family. How those family secrets that I have carried could possibly impact them, how I even interact with them, what I allow them to do, who I allow them to be with, it makes a difference. One of the other things I want to talk about today is not shaming the whistleblower. There's going to be a time where the information is disclosed, is going to come out, and the person that shared the information about their particular experience within the family they should not be shamed. They should not be made to feel bad because they're the person that shared it. And sometimes family people don't share or say the things that they need to say as it concerns family secrets because of that very fact. They've seen other people be shamed because they said something. Don't shame people. It's not okay to shame somebody for sharing their experience and sharing what happened to them, or sharing something that has been on their hearts, or sharing about their mental illness, their struggle with mental illness, or their struggle with addiction. It's not easy to do that. It's not easy to say, this has happened to me. This is happening to me. It took bravery and courage for that person to share. Don't shoot it down, and don't cause that person to be withdrawn because you shoot down them sharing what has happened to them. So we got to remember that telling breaks the cycle. We got to work even in those areas. That's why this topic of mental health is so important to me. We've got to break down these stigmas. We've got to break down those barriers so that parents aren't afraid to share that their child has a mental health illness in the school setting, with schools, so that they aren't stigmatized. We got to be fighting for them not just on the school level, but we've got to go a little bit higher, maybe even with the laws of the land that regard stigmatization of people who have mental illness, especially our children. They're not, we don't get to count people out. No, we have to address these things, but people are afraid because of the stigmatization that has happened. Let's not do that to each other. If somebody's dealing with something and they're dealing with something, let's deal with it. And in families, if something comes out, that's okay. If it's out in the open, everybody knows about it now. And let's be for real. Every family has something that causes them to kind of be like, we all have stuff in our families that causes us to kind of be taken aback by actually directly dealing with the issue. And the biggest thing is, what are people going to think about my family if this is found out or if this is known? Forget what people think about your family. The truth is, all families have something. Even people that seem like on the surface they have it all together, those families have something that they're keeping that's not healthy for them to keep or cover up. And, we see it happen in the news all the time. We have, generations of people dealing with, and we have like even celebrities. If you look at some of celebrity families, things that they've tried to keep under wraps, it's found out. And it does more harm than good because now it's known that it was hidden. We think we're doing ourselves a favor as families by keeping these things hidden. It does more harm than good in the long run. And it causes more issues and generational cycles of things happening in our families that are not healthy. So let's consider being well as families. Let's consider the impact of family secrets. Let's consider tearing down those walls, having open discussions and conversations about the things that may have happened that are not so cool to talk about. They don't feel good to talk about. But we got to have it so that the next generation can be healthier, that we can begin to have our own healing within ourselves and within our families. So, any questions, comments, concerns? And I want to encourage you that if you are the person that has been the whistleblower, it's okay. I want to encourage families to talk and have open conversations about family secrets. Let's do it. Let's do it. There's this idea sometimes that it'll do more harm than good and it don't do no good to talk about it now. Yes, it does. We got to tear that stuff down so it's not happening generationally. And the fact that we're not talking about it is what causes some things to continue to happen generationally. And we have cycles of these things happening, negative things happening generationally because nobody will talk about it. Nobody will be open and ask for forgiveness. Nobody will reconcile if we don't talk about it. Nobody is forced to do what they should do as far as reconciliation is concerned. And if people walk away, they walk away. But that still doesn't change the fact that they're still a part of this family and that it's still connected to them in some way. So, no questions, no comments. I want to encourage you to share this video. I want to thank you for joining me for Mental Health Mondays. If you have not joined me before, this is your first time, please, if you have not already, share. We want to get the information out so that people are aware of the topics that we're talking about and how important they are. I want to thank all of you this morning for coming on and joining me. I want to encourage you to take care of yourselves, take care of your mental health. I want you to remember that I am here as a resource. I'm available to come and talk to various organizations, groups, faith-based groups, churches, family reunions. I say that very often, but many of our trouble stems within our families and spills over into our community. So I'm here. If you need to have a one-on-one, if you need some other resources, let me know. Leave me comments, inbox me. I'll be more than happy to check into things for you. If I don't have an answer for you, I will try my best to get it for you, and we'll make it roll that way. I want to thank you for joining me for Mental Health Mondays. Please share the videos and remember that your mental health matters. Have an amazing week. Good morning, and welcome to Mental Health Monday. I am your host, Fran, and I am so happy to have you here with me on this beautiful Monday morning. Today is July the 8th. Wow, y'all. We have made it more than halfway through our year 2019, so I'm happy to have you with me on today. Today we're going to be talking about loyalty and mental health. Loyalty and mental health. So I'm going to give people a minute or two to come on, and I ask that if you would please share the video as you're coming on. I think this topic is very important in multiple areas of our lives, whether it's with our spirituality, whether it's with our families, whether it's with our jobs, whether it's with commitments and obligations and things that I think that it's an important topic for us to discuss because it can tie to so many different mental health issues. One of the, a lot of times I often will focus on some of the more prevalent mental health issues that we see today. Anxiety and depression are ones that I always highlight because they are the ones that I most often see as a mental health professional. So I'd like to highlight, good morning, Miss Melissa. I'd like to highlight how important it is for us to, how we can tease out how to apply a loyalty appropriately to our relationships, no matter what role or responsibilities that we have. Okay, so if you would share the video as you're coming on. So today we're going to talk about loyalty and mental health. So as I was considering this topic, one of the things is the definition. Good morning. Hey, Pastor. I was looking at loyalty and what the definition of loyalty is. So the definition of loyalty is the quality of being loyal. To be loyal is a strong feeling of support or allegiance. That's what loyal means. A strong feeling of support or allegiance. I want you to think about some of the areas of your life in which you feel loyalty is an important concept. And you can comment. Good morning, Mr. Stokely. Hey, Nita. And I want you to comment on here. Tell me some areas of life that loyalty is important to you in. Because one of the things that I really want to get into today is how it can impact us in our mental health in a not so great way if we're not balancing things well. So think of some areas that loyalty is important to you in. And as you're thinking of that, comment on here, and I'm going to go ahead and share with you the article that I found that's right in line with what we're talking about today. This article is called The Psychology of Loyalty. The Psychology of Loyalty. And this article was found on drherd.com. Dr. Michael Herd is a psychologist, a licensed psychologist. He's been practicing in the counseling field for many years. He's written several books. So drherd.com is the article where the article was found, and the name of the article is The Psychology of Loyalty. So that he highlights about this particular topic is that typically people will equate loyalty with integrity. Wow. Think about that for a minute. How many times have we said if we are loyal to somebody, it's a reflection of our integrity? If we're loyal to a project, it's a reflect. How many times have we thought that that loyalty was a reflection of our integrity, whether we were loyal or not, whether we had this strong sense of support or allegiance to a particular project, to a particular person, to a particular job, whether it's for those of us who are in the faith community, to a particular place of worship. Those are different areas where loyalty is seen as a very valuable, and often it's equated with integrity. So most of us, he says in this article, that most of us get caught up when we base and choose maybe friendships or even romantic partners based on a vague or unidentified sense, on vague or unidentified feelings. We don't even know what it is that we're feeling. We just feel like we should do it. How many times have you felt like, and this doesn't just apply to relationships like friendships or family or jobs. What about different other areas of your life? Like I would think even when it comes to people calling you on the phone, people calling, a lot of times telemarketing schemes are really prevalent now because people are they base people's loyalties to a certain cause. They use that as the basis of their approach to people, their loyalties to a certain cause, this allegiance to a certain cause. So they'll call you and try to pull at those feelings, and he says vague feelings, and we base our loyalty to people, we base our loyalty to organizations, we base our loyalty to friends, we base our loyalty to family, to jobs, to roles on this vague sense of feelings. We don't even know, sometimes, he says we don't even know sometimes what we're being loyal to. Why are we being loyal? as a result, we don't get of that particular interaction, relationship, connection, but feelings. So, and this is where sometimes we get in our feelings with concerns our friendships and our relationships, even with family or other areas. If one little thing goes wrong, we start to question what we were doing, why we were even pursuing this thing. Good morning. Why were we even loyal to this in the first place? And we start to regret decisions that we've made to have this loyalty to this person or this organization. If somebody betrays us, if in work we feel like we're not getting paid fairly, but we've been loyal to the company. Tell me sometimes when you have been loyal based on the definition that we shared today, allegiance. This having a sense of allegiance to something. And I always like to speak from a personal basis, especially as a counselor, because I don't ever want people who join me here on Mental Health Monday to believe that because I work in the field of counseling, I have it all together and I have it all figured out. I don't. I still struggle with what loyalty means to me, having this strong feeling of support and allegiance toward certain people, toward certain organizations. I've dealt with challenges with loyalty as it concerns my family. Like, why do I have this sense of loyalty to my family? Sometimes they haven't even, sometimes certain family members haven't even done anything very good to earn my loyalty, to earn this support or allegiance. We shouldn't be supportive of each other. Not saying, I strongly promote support. And this is one of the main things that I highlight as it concerns our mental health is this idea of support. But we have to look at what is it based on? Like, is it based on if it's a relationship with a person, like if it's a family member or if it's a friend, what is it based on? What is my sense of loyalty to this person based on? Is it based on anything of substance? Is it based on maybe the cultivation of a relationship with that person over time? What is it based on? Danita, you said loyalty in church. Oh, that is a big one, especially for those of us who grew up in the Christian faith and particularly of the Pentecostal apostolic persuasion or practice of Christianity. There's this sense of loyalty that is expected as far as maybe where you go to church, whether the people that you go to church with are your family. Loyalty to leadership. Oh, that's really good. Loyalty to the leadership instead of loyalty to Jesus. That's pretty powerful. What have these people done to show you that we should have a strong feeling of support or allegiance toward them? And I definitely would venture to say that a lot of people, especially in the faith-based communities, not just Christianity, may feel some sense of anxiety or angst when they believe that it's time for them to move on or go to a different place. Maybe they need to explore some other areas as far as their spirituality is concerned. And they have this anxiety about going to a different place because there is this sense of loyalty that over time has been developed because this person is who they are. We should respect them. We should be loyal to them because of who they say they are. But what have they proven? What have we required of them to prove that they are worthy of our loyalty? And especially myself, I have had to be very careful about how I looked at this concept of loyalty and applied it to my life, even as it concerns my faith. You know, people's life has to be reflective of what they say they believe. So if you're going to follow somebody, especially leadership positions, what type of fruit do they have to let you know that they're a person that is loyal? Are they hardworking? Do they walk in integrity? evidence, anything in their lives that's continually fruitful and productive that would show you that having loyalty toward them is something that is going to be helpful and fruitful for you in your own life. Because one of the things that this is something even that my pastor preached on yesterday, fellowship, ships of any kind, friendship, relationship, ship is a means of transportation. It's supposed to carry you somewhere. Good morning, where is your loyalty carrying you? And that can be in your career, that can be in your friendships, that can be in your family, that can be in various areas of your life, in your spirituality. Where are these ships that we have created, that we have built? Where are they carrying us? Mike, where are they carrying us? We have developed these false senses of loyalty. We have developed these things over time because of who people told us somebody was, or who society says certain people should be to us. But what about the anxiety? What about the sadness and the depression that comes about when these people maybe don't live up to the standard of who they say they are? What about when they make a mistake? Does that taint our loyalty to them? What about on the job when things don't go quite as we plan? We don't get the promotion that we desired to have. Does that impact our loyalty, our sense of allegiance and support to that particular agency? What about in faith-based communities? We see all the time where people, I like to say people who are in a leadership position of any kind, whether it's in a church, whether it's in the corporate world, wherever, there's an often unspoken expectation that they always have everything together. What about the anxiety and the depression that those people go through when they make a mistake, and they're concerned about the people that may have been loyal to them as they have grown, as they have developed, as they have moved up the ladder? What about that depression or anxiety that can be associated with them feeling like, I let people down. I don't want the people that were once loyal to me to not be loyal anymore. I still need their support. I still need their allegiance to help me to carry the vision of this project, this agency, this business, this church, whatever it is. I still need people's loyalty to help me to maintain what I have started. What about when people make mistakes? What about when people mess up? We're human. Does our sense of loyalty change when people mess up or make mistakes? I would venture to say more often than not, it does. It does change. It does change. From personal experience, my sense of loyalty has been tested as it concerns my interactions with people that I know, maybe family members who I feel may have mistreated me. And I believe that I had been really loyal to them, supported them, shown allegiance to them because of their connection to me, whether it was by blood or whether it was by introduction later in life. I felt this sense of loyalty to them, and then they did something that was hurtful toward me. Now it causes me to question, well, should I be loyal to them? Should I support them? Should I have this allegiance? It purposely hurt me. So now it puts you in a place of a little bit of anxiety sometimes. Well, is it safe for me to have this loyalty to this person? Is it okay now that they've done blah, 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 blah? We have to understand what loyalty is, and then we also have to understand why have we ascribed loyalty in certain relationships, in certain areas of our lives? Why have we decided to walk in loyalty in that area of our lives? I want us to consider that. Anybody have questions about this topic? Comments about this topic this morning? How often has loyalty to someone kept you from moving in a healthy direction in your life? This allegiance, this support. And another thing about is sometimes that we have loyalty and this sense of allegiance to somebody because they've been present to a person, because they've been present for us during maybe a hard time in our lives. Maybe they were part of a developmental stage of our lives. So we feel this allegiance and this need to support, this sense of support for them. It gets really hard. Yes, a mistake is forgivable. Patterns of behaviors. There we go. That causes you to question. There you go. So it's not just a one-time thing. When you see a pattern of behaviors with someone that you have known, or maybe you see a pattern of behaviors with them, it's hard because it's kind of like now it's intentional. I don't know if I should be loyal. I don't know if I should have this sense of allegiance toward you, this sense of support toward you, because now you are willfully engaging in behaviors that are unhealthy, unkind, not supportive of somebody else. So it's a willful thing when it comes to the pattern of behaviors. It can be kind of considered more willful. Sometimes patterns of behaviors, though, are based on what somebody has learned over time, and nobody has really challenged them on it, so they continue to do it. But if someone has engaged in a pattern of behaviors that are unhealthy toward you or someone else, and you make them aware, then awareness is not the issue anymore. It's now looking at you're willfully doing this thing, even though I have asked you not to do it, even though I've told you that it was hurtful. So in those instances, loyalty can be questioned. Where does my sense of loyalty lie now that I have made you aware that these things that you're doing, these things that you're saying are hurtful? They're not helpful, they're harmful. So then we get on the fence, especially when it's family. We have, especially, I'll say specifically for my own family, we were taught growing up that your family, when nobody else has you, your family has you. Your family is the place where you can where it's okay. You should have this sense of loyalty to your family, because your family is where you got your start. They are the ones who supported you. They are the ones who have been there for you. They're the ones who have maybe shown up to various events or different stages of your life. So the expectation is that you have the loyalty toward your family. Sometimes loyalty in families is more harmful than good, because there's this expectation of it just because it's family. I should be loyal to you because you're my family. I should engage in this loyalty to you because you're my family. Well, in all actuality, sometimes I found that it can be the most difficult to be loyal to family, because sometimes they do engage in these repeated patterns of behavior after you made them aware that these things are hurtful or harmful to you, and they don't change them so that it's not. So they feel like because of who you are, or maybe things that you may have done, they don't have to engage in being worthy of your loyalty. Thank you. I try to talk about myself because at the end of the day, I can ask you to share about your personal experiences, but at the end of the day, I believe that some transparency on my end as far as my challenges with certain topics that we discuss here on Mental Health Mondays is definitely important with regard to your sharing, and then your being able to overcome some of the challenges that you face. One of the things I really like about this platform is that it allows me to share my own personal experiences, and it allows you to see, hey, even though she has this title, that's not a whole lot. I was a human being first. I'm a human being first. Outside of responsibilities, outside of all of those things, I am a human being first. So I believe that that's very key when it comes to being effective as a professional in this field. People want to know that you are human as well. Any other comments or concerns, challenges that you've had with this topic of loyalty? Anybody else want to share? Good morning. So, anybody else? Danita, I really appreciate your feedback about the pattern of behaviors that causes us to question our own loyalty. If anyone here has experienced any hurt because of exercising this sense of any area of your life, I'd encourage you to go get some counseling. I also want to encourage you to see what is the basis. Look at what is the basis of my loyalty. Why do I believe that it's important for me to have this sense of allegiance, this sense of support toward this organization, toward this person, toward this church, toward my neighbors? You know, why is it important for me to have that? And if someone has already shown me or proven to me through a pattern of behaviors that they are not necessarily worthy of my loyalty, then where do I draw the line? Where do I set some healthy boundaries for myself as I engage with that person, as I change the way that I interact with that person, or I change the way that I interact at work, or I change my expectations of myself? Sometimes we experience anger. Sometimes we feel afraid, or whatever the case may be, whatever feeling it is, because we have set unrealistic expectations of ourselves in certain situations, depending on who it is, depending on where it is, depending on the circumstances that surround it. We have set unrealistic expectations of ourselves to be loyal when we may not necessarily have the obligation to be loyal to that thing or that person at all. What is our expectation set on? And I even speak too from a personal experience with loyalty. I have had to see that I have been more loyal in certain areas of my life and with certain people, and it wasn't necessary, the loyalty wasn't necessarily reciprocated. So I have to even change my expectations of other people. So I step away from people when I feel there's a disconnect. Absolutely. Very good. Right. Absolutely. Sometimes we do have to step away. We do. We have to take a step back. And it's not, sometimes we equate loyalty with love. That's another piece that's really prevalent, especially in families, and then, you know, especially any long-term friendships, relationships. We equate loyalty with love. Just because, and I've come to find out that I can love you, but I don't necessarily have to pledge my allegiance to you. I don't have to support ways just because I love you. So we have to also be mindful of how we equate loyalty with love. You have to change how you support. I like that. Big part of it. Good. If there's a disconnect, and sometimes there's not necessarily I like how you say you stepped away from people when you feel there is a disconnect. Sometimes the disconnect is rooted in the idea that was there actually ever really a real true connection? That's something to be considered as well. Sometimes we connect ourselves and our loyalty to ideas, to certain people, to certain establishments, to certain areas of work. We connect our loyalty to that thing when what our connection didn't have much substance in the first place. So really, was it a connection in the beginning? So was there really a disconnect per se versus more an understanding that you're not getting what you need out of the relationship or that particular interaction or continued interactions with that person, that situation, that place of business. Sometimes even in the business world, we want to support people. We want to, we have a sense of loyalty to certain organizations or places of work. But when there are certain patterns there, and we don't even have a real basis for our support or our allegiance to those things, how is it that we can necessarily say that, you know, we're wrong to change support? So we don't have to necessarily be anxious, and we don't necessarily have to be connected in a certain way. Right. And so you can have support around you, and it's not necessarily people who are blood relatives or even people that you've grown up or friends. Sometimes it does work out that way, and you get more support sometimes from other areas other than outside of family. And sometimes that's by how circumstances are as far as you're living, where you live, or maybe certain situations have happened in the past that caused a disconnect or caused you to pull away. And so you learn how to develop different other connections where there is a sense of loyalty to different people who work in your field, organizations, mentors, and things of that nature, because that's who's around you and that's who you can connect with. And so you have things that are in common. That's another thing. What do I have in common with the people that are around me? And how does that impact my sense of loyalty to that particular person, organization, what have you? You have to develop it. I often talk about in my line of work, and especially in mental health, as it concerns mental health, there's not a lot of talk about where the resources are. So if this is your first time, you know, kind of exploring what it means to you to address your mental health challenges, or even maybe seek out support on just previous connections. You can't just rely on places where you had allegiance or support from before if you don't have those things readily available to you. You have to be able to develop a sense of connection and support and allegiance from other areas of your circle. So, questions, comments. Thanks everybody for sharing. That was a good point, Deecher, that you don't live near family. So how you see loyalty a lot probably in your case would be just seeing who's around you. How can you develop support and allegiance to those who may support and develop allegiance toward you in the area of your business? So that was all right, good people. Any other questions, comments? I want to thank everybody for participating this morning. If you have not already, I want to encourage you to share this video on your personal pages. It is public, so you can share if you have any questions or comments that you may not have felt comfortable sharing here on the live feed. I am more than happy to receive comments, questions in my inbox. Please reach out, because I believe that the more we reach out, the more that we can have access to, and the more that we can expose ourselves to resources that are helpful for us. God bless you too. So if no other questions, if no other comments, I want to thank you for joining me for Mental Health Monday. Remember, please share, please like, and that your mental health matters. Have a great day. Peace. Good morning. It is Monday, and welcome to Mental Health Monday. And I am your host, Fran Futrell. and I want to talk about a very important topic today. One of the things that seems to be pretty pervasive in our world today is physical illness. Sometimes physical illness can have a negative impact, a significantly negative impact on your mental health. And I believe that many people who may view Mental Health Mondays may be dealing with physical illnesses as well as some mental health issues as well. So I want to address that today. So I'm going to give a couple of people some time to come on. And while we're waiting for some people, please be mindful that Mental Health Mondays are at 9 a.m. every Monday. And just share the videos. If you find the information helpful, apply it personally, but also share the videos with your family, with your friends, so that we can make sure that people are informed about mental health challenges, concerns, issues. So we'll give a couple more people some time to come on, and then we will move right along. I also want to say thank you to you for joining me for Mental Health Mondays every Monday. We've started back in August, so I appreciate your support. I appreciate your sharing. I appreciate the interest that you have taken in addressing mental health issues as they arise. So, I know some more people will hop on. Good morning. I know some more people will hop on, so I just want to go ahead and make sure we get started here. And so today we're going to talk about physical illness and the impacts of physical illness on mental health, or vice versa, mainly that in that direction, more in that direction. So physical illness, and the information that I always want to share, there's sources as well that I have taken the information from. So the first resource that I am talking from is the Royal College of Psychiatry, and then the National Institute of Mental Health websites. Those will be the two websites or informational resources that I will be talking from today. So you can go on those websites and do a little bit more research for yourself, educate yourself on what we're discussing today, and that way you will be even more informed about how physical health can impact your mental health. So today we're going to go ahead and get started and talk about how the emotional effects of physical illness can impact the emotional effects of physical illness, and how physical illness can directly correlate to our mental health. So serious physical illness is probably more in the vein that I want to focus on today. And so we're going to talk about how those things can be, how serious physical illness affects our mental health. So it affects relationships, our work, our spiritual beliefs, and how we interact with others. If we have a physical ailment, it can impact all of those areas of life, and it can lead to feelings of depression, anxiety, and those feelings are rightly experienced due to the fact that you could possibly feel out of control of your body when certain illnesses just kind of like pop up out of nowhere, and you could have the tendency to feel that it's out of your control. And feeling like nothing you can do. So these feelings can be directly traced to that. Also, sometimes we feel lonely and isolated from family and friends. It can be difficult to talk to people about physical illness with people who are close to you. And one of the biggest things that I've heard is that people do not want to upset somebody by telling them about their physical illness. And sometimes that can lead to them feeling alone because they don't really feel like they can tell someone that's close to them that they have a physical illness for how the other person will feel or react. So that's some of the reasons why people who are diagnosed with physical illnesses, serious physical illnesses, may not even share with close family and friends. I've even heard of husbands and wives keeping information about their physical diagnoses from each other because they didn't want the other one to worry about them. And one of the main emotions that people experience who deal with physical illness is depression. Depression can be caused when there are diagnoses such as cancer, coronary heart disease, diabetes, epilepsy, strokes, HIV and AIDS, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, systemic lupus, rheumatoid arthritis. Like these are just, this is not an exhaustive list of items that can lead to depression with the diagnosis, but these are just some probably more prevalent ones. But I would venture to say that if you are diagnosed with a serious physical illness, period, no matter what it is, you may have a tendency to feel depressed because, of course, you don't want your family to worry about you, or you don't want them to take special care of you. You don't want them to feel the pressure of taking care of you, or you just are fearful of how they would receive the information. So depression is a prevalent emotion that people experience who have these serious physical diagnoses. So while we're on the subject of depression, I want to kind of talk a little bit about how the people who have these diagnoses are, well, let me backtrack just a little bit. People with depression are, let me flip it just a tad, people with depression. So we've been talking a little bit about how physical illnesses can lead to depression, anxiety. But let's talk a little bit about the reverse, how depression itself can lead to medical conditions, the higher risk for medical conditions. So people who have the diagnosis of depression may be at higher risk for cardiovascular disease, diabetes, stroke, and Alzheimer's. So it kind of works in the reverse as well. So I just wanted to highlight that piece. So they don't have, from this research that is presented here, they don't have like a direct reason why, but one of the factors is that people with depression may not have access to good medical care, and they may have a hard time taking care of their own health, seeking care, getting the prescribed medications that they need, eating well, exercising. And that is another topic that we're going to talk about in another Mental Health Monday. I believe that also, in addition to taking care of our mental health, it's important to realize how eating well and exercising also impact our mental health. But that's another topic for another Mental Health Monday. So let's go back to the effects of the physical health diagnosis on the mental health piece. So let's talk about that. People who are depressed and anxious, sometimes it seems like it comes out of nowhere and it doesn't seem like there's a clear reason. But being ill or having an illness physically can make things stressful. It can make people feel like maybe they don't have all that they need to get through the illness. And some drug treatments that people have for physical ailments can, like steroids, can actually affect the way that the brain works and cause anxiety and depression directly. Also, some physical illnesses, such as like an underactive thyroid, affect the way that the brain works. So they can cause anxiety. Those types of diagnoses can cause anxiety and depression directly. So let's talk about what may make someone who has a physical illness more likely to experience anxiety or depression. Some of those factors are having been anxious or depressed before, not having family or friends that you can talk to about your illness, being a female, being a woman. A lot of times women are more likely to report anxiety and depression than men are. Having other problems that are going on in your life at the same time that you receive your physical health diagnosis. For example, a divorce or the death of a loved one. All of these things can impact how much a serious physical health diagnosis impacts you as well. Being in a lot of pain is relative for each person, and it's experienced differently for each person, whereas one person may not experience a high level of pain. Let's just say the pain is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the least amount of pain and 10 being the absolute most pain they've ever been in their lives. That type of experience can be difficult to explain to other people, and to be in that consistent with a lot of these physical illnesses that we highlighted earlier, like lupus, I didn't mention it, sickle cell anemia, though. I have some relatives, some cousins, I love them dearly. They have been suffering with sickle cell anemia for their entire lives, and many of them are in their 30s. Some of their siblings have passed away from the disease. So like even that piece is another element added on top of reasons why people may experience depression or anxiety within the context of addressing their physical health. So they, no doubt, I've never asked them, but I'm sure that they've experienced some depression, some anxiety that's associated with it being a life-threatening disease, and the fact that they have lost their family members to the same disease. One of my cousins that I talk to occasionally, we talk, we have a pretty good relationship. She tells me about her sister who, has the disease currently, and, how hard it is for her to stay encouraged, how hard it is for her, how hard it is for them to make sure that they keep her encouraged within the context of dealing with her own disease. So not only in that situation, it adds another layer of it, because you have a family of people dealing with the same physical health issues. And so just imagine having to address your own physical health issues and be supportive of somebody else in addressing their physical issues, as well as keeping each other encouraged, making sure that they're not depressed and doing things with them. I can only imagine how draining that could be at some times, just trying to provide the support emotionally and physically in dealing with your own physical health issues. I can only imagine how that can take a toll on a person as well. So that adds a whole nother element of addressing anxiety and depression. So and let's keep on, can't care for themselves at some point after being diagnosed with a major physical illness, a significant or serious or life-threatening physical illness. Sometimes anxiety and depression is brought on by the fact that, now I do have to depend on other people. Now I do have to be mindful of what, how my physical ailments are affecting someone. So, just some ideas about asking for help. It's this, if you think within the context of a physical illness that you could be experiencing some depression or some anxiety, it could be heightened, in a physical, after being diagnosed with a physical ailment, a serious physical illness, your anxiety and your depression could be heightened, and it could make any fears or worries or sadness that you had before even worse. And also, it may be exacerbated by the fact that it doesn't seem to be getting better with time. Sometimes people have physical ailments and they're given a time period for how long they may have to deal with it, or if it's a terminal illness, they are given almost like a death sentence in a sense, because it's a time period that you're going to have to deal with this, and it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse only. So just imagine being in that position where you're given a time period, the anxiety and the worry and the stress that could be and depression that could be experienced by a person who has a terminal illness. I have talked about the stages of grief before, and one of the stages is denial. And just not even really being able to accept what's going on with your physical body. So just imagine that. And then when you get to the place where you can kind of understand what's going on and how things are going to go with your physical illness, it can lead to sadness. It can lead to, when you finally accept that that's what you're dealing with, and there is a possibility that you may not get better. How depressing could that be? How anxious could that make you if you maybe need to get some affairs in place? So just some things to consider with regard to that aspect of how physical health affects your mental health. So let's look at when to look at getting help. If we kind of talked about before, if your fears or anxieties are getting worse than you've ever had before, if things don't seem to be getting better, if your anxiety or your depression is not getting better over time, if your feelings toward your family members and friends and your work are being affected, if you feel like life isn't worth living anymore, then that's a time when you need to seek help if you're dealing with a physical illness and it's affecting your mental health. So, and the sad part about it is that you may not even realize that you are depressed or anxious because you think the symptoms that you're experiencing are due to your physical health or your physical illness. And sometimes people have a tendency to blame themselves for feeling lazy or feeble. Some physical illnesses affect you in such a way that you feel you don't have energy. You don't have the physical ability to just get out of bed sometimes, and it can affect your mental health. So you may not even realize that you're dealing with it, with some depression. If you think that you're being lazy or feeble, you're blaming yourself for being lazy or feeble. So one of the things that I also want to address with asking for help with anxiety and depression, if you have physical illness as well, is that you may feel like your distress is understandable and therefore nothing can be done about it. It can be hard because you feel like, it's just a part of life. This is what people do. People get sick. People deal with illnesses. There's nothing I can do about it. So another reason why people can have difficulty asking for help is that they may feel they don't want to seem like they're being ungrateful, because sometimes those people are going through treatments and things of that nature. They have to deal with doctors and nurses and things all the time. And they don't want to feel like they're complaining. They don't want to feel like they are making a big deal about their issues or constantly talking about their physical ailments. So they keep it to themselves. You may not want to interfere. You may feel that it may be difficult for you to ask for help if you're dealing with a physical illness that affects your mental health, because you feel like you don't want to interfere with a physical treatment to address your mental health needs. But as you know, everything interacts together. So if you're having difficulty with your managing depression, anxiety in the context of your physical health needs or illness, you need to make sure you address them both. Take some time that you're not in a treatment for your physical health and address the mental health as you feel up to it. It doesn't have to be a long drawn out thing. If you don't feel like going to a doctor, there's what's called teletherapy. So I would encourage people who may be dealing with long-term illnesses or significantly draining physical illnesses to check into teletherapy. There is such a thing. Or having your sessions over online. There are laws in place. There's confidentiality pieces in place that will protect your privacy. If you choose to utilize that particular resource, you can use that as well. So I don't want people to feel like, well, what if I don't feel like going? Am I not going to get my mental health needs met because I can't get out of bed? No. You have resources as well. So I want to make sure you're aware of those. So I would encourage you, if you need that resource and you're currently experiencing a significant physical health issue, or you know someone who's experiencing a significant physical health issue, and they want to address the coping challenges that they're having related to anxiety and depression, that's an option. Call your insurance company, see if it's something that they cover. And that's another resource that you can have to address your mental health as you go through your physical health experience. So sometimes it can be difficult for asking for help too when you're dealing with anxiety and depression related to your physical illness. If you feel like the people that are caring for you, such as your doctors or nurses, are more interested in addressing your physical issues than your emotional ones. So again, that would be something that you bring up with your doctors. Hey, I need some help coping with this. This is very difficult for me to cope with. This is very challenging for me to kind of deal with. I feel like I'm alone, and I feel like maybe sometimes my physical health takes precedence over my mental health, but I want to be healthy all around. So I want to address this as well. So make them aware. They have a responsibility to care for that part of you as well, in addition to addressing your physical needs. So the magic question is now, how can we help people who may be dealing with a physical illness address anxiety and depression that may be triggered as a result of that physical illness? So again, we talk about, I'm going to put in a plug for counselors because I am one, and I believe that sometimes just having somebody to listen to what your needs are, somebody to listen to your fears, somebody to listen to your anxieties, somebody to listen to how sad you feel, sometimes can be helpful in and of itself. And just having that person, maybe if you can't talk to your family or your friends about what you are experiencing in that moment because you feel like they might not understand, counseling in an agency with a counselor is definitely something I always am going to recommend, because it's just a good way to process. Sometimes you may come in and say, I just want to talk today. And the counselor has a responsibility to just let you do what you need to do in that space. So there's also psychiatry that is available. That's the medication piece. Yeah. And then there is another treatment. It's called transcranial. Transcranial magnetic therapy. So it actually is similar to what you see on the medical shows, where they're attaching like the pieces to your head, but it's not negatively affecting you over time. That's another treatment for depression that people are that I've been introduced to. So we'll talk a little bit more about that another time, but it's just different methods that you can utilize to address it. And you also have to be mindful of how, you also have to be mindful of what works well for you. We talk a lot about getting therapy and making sure you address those needs, but you got to make sure you look out for what works for you, because every method is not going to work well for everybody. So just being able to take some time and research, let's see, what treatments are there for anxiety? What treatments are there for depression? Identifying what providers actually provide that type of treatment. Again, I always recommend psychologytoday.com, because you can go on that website, and type in what you need, and it will pull up a listing of therapists or treatment providers who directly deal with the issue that you are dealing with. So now, sometimes people want to know, if I go through the trouble of finding somebody to help me address my mental health needs within the context of my physical health needs, or how my physical health impacts my emotional health, will it help? It depends on your perspective. That's what I would say. A lot of times, whether things are helpful or not depends on our perspective of it being helpful. If you go into it with feeling like it's pointless, list, or I'm really not going to get anything out of it, then that's what you can expect. You're not going to really get anything out of it. And sometimes it can be scary to talk to somebody, especially somebody that's brand new and is totally outside of the context of what you deal with on a daily basis. They're not related to you at all. You may feel like you may be fearful that they may not be as caring or concerned because they're not your family member or your friend. But at the same time, what I've found is that it can be refreshing to talk to someone that's completely and totally outside of the situation to help you address your needs in that moment. Now, there are, how quickly does it work? I would tell you that it depends. Sometimes you can feel better right away. Sometimes just having that unload and talking to somebody about how you're feeling in the moment can be helpful, and it cause you to instantly feel better. But sometimes it will take time. So it's okay either way. It just depends on you. It just depends on what your needs are, and it depends on what your expectations are of feeling better sometimes too. Sometimes we don't feel better because we don't have the expectation of feeling better. So we have to change our expectations as well. So as far as side effects of other possible treatments, like the medication piece, I would say you may want to talk with your physical doc, with your PCP, or whatever specialist is providing your treatment for your physical health, to make sure that your medications that you may take to address anxiety or depression for your mental health piece don't conflict. So typically what happens is, if you decide to pursue psychiatry or a treatment for your mental health using medication, you'll be asked what medications you already take, so that they can make sure that those don't collide with each other or cause negative side effects in the fact that they are counteracting each other. So one of the things as takeaways that I want to encourage you to do today is, as we look at how physical health can affect our mental health, I want to encourage you that if you are experiencing a significant physical health issue, you need to talk to somebody that's close to you and make them aware of it. Because at the end of the day, they have the ability to get the help that they need with processing it as well, just like you do. So somebody close to you needs to know. You need to talk to somebody that can be there to support you. Don't feel like that you can't share what's going on with you physically because you don't want it to negatively impact another person that's close to you. And what I found too is that sometimes people feel hurt on the other end. Not that it's about the other person, but relationally, if you have a family member that's close or that you consider close, and they don't know that you're ill or that you're sick, sometimes they want to be there to support you, and they would have been there to support you all along had they known. And it's hurtful toward them. So in your attempts to not burden them with your issue or with your concern, with your health concern, you're actually doing the opposite. Hey, Tina, you're actually doing the opposite. You're actually causing more worry and anxiety on the back end by not telling them, because then if they find out by accident, or if they find out later down the line and find out that you've been dealing with this physical illness for an extended period of time, it's hurtful because they want you to know that they're there to support you. So please, I encourage anyone who's watching this Mental Health Monday, if you are experiencing a significant physical health illness or multiple physical health illnesses at the same time, that can be a lot to deal with on your own, for one, and it can significantly impact your mood and your mental health. But also, be mindful. You need to let somebody know so that they can be supportive of you through that. Whatever they need to do, to take care of themselves, encourage them to do this. Tell them, I know this is a lot to take on. I know this is a lot to hear. And I know this might be hard for you to hear from me about, this particular diagnosis or diagnoses in some cases. But I needed you to know so that you were aware and it doesn't impact negatively down the line. So it's important for our family members and our friends, those that we consider close, if we are diagnosed with any illness of any kind, let them know so those that will be there to support you can be there. Those that want to be there can. And also be mindful too that even if a person doesn't really know how to receive it, encourage them to do the research on it. Share some information with them about your illness so that they do feel better equipped to help you and to support you. Because sometimes I have heard of people delving in, just diving in once they find out that their family member has a physical illness, a significant physical illness. They do research themselves so they can be informed about how to help and what resources are available to help treat. So it actually can be helpful for you if you share it with them, because they may identify some information that was not readily available to you. You didn't know about it, and now they're sharing it with you. They're not necessarily worried or trying to beat you over the head with it, but now they have the information themselves and they're able to share with you some other options possibly for your physical health treatment, so that you can continue to address that in as a healthy way as you can. So let's not be fearful of sharing these things with our family members. They want to know. Most cases, I found that they want to know. They want to be supportive. And if it gets to the point that it's overbearing or it's too much, they're doing too much as far as their support of you is concerned, you just let them know, hey, I appreciate the fact that you are on board with helping me with this and that you're in tune with what I need, but I need some space, and that's okay. And they'll be understanding of that. They'll still be there when you need them. If they can be supportive how you need them to be supportive, if you tell them and let them know what's going on. So now, as far as family members and friends being helpful, more in that vein, spend time with people. Sometimes that decreases the physical health issues and the mental health issues, because sometimes the physical health issues are exacerbated by the fear and worry of how it's affecting other people, or just period. It's just anxiety and depression producing. Spend time with them. Don't nag them, but they do need to be encouraged. Maybe just talk to them. Take a few minutes out of the day, call them, check on them throughout the day, and just reassure the person, hey, I'm here to support you. I don't encourage you to make promises, oh, like it's going to get better, and I don't, you're going to be like, encourage them that they have the support that they need, but don't make them promises about how they're going to progress, because it could be a situation in which reality is that it does not get better, but they have somebody there to support them. So, let's not make promises, unrealistic promises either. I'm all for faith. I'm all for believing that things will get better, because sometimes that does help people to push and to get to where they need to be and to overcome certain illnesses and diseases. But sometimes people are more offended by the fact that you tell them, oh, everything's going to be great. Everything's going to be fine. You're going to do, like, it's going to be great. Everything's going to be fine on the other side of this. And sometimes they're facing a life-threatening illness that they want you to be real with them. I understand what the prognosis is. I'm here to support you, and I want things to get better, and I recognize that it may go the other way as well, but whatever way it goes, I'm here to support you. So make sure they're eating well too. Encourage them to eat well. If you're going to bring snacks, bring them some fruit, bring them some water, bring them some something good that's healthy. We have a tendency to buy comfort food for people, and we exacerbate their physical health problems because we bring them the wrong things to eat. So make sure too that you keep an eye on people who have these physical illnesses and are dealing with depression and anxiety related to it, if they start hinting that they don't want to live, make sure you're getting them some help. Make sure that their doctor knows about it. Make sure that there are supports in place for them, because it can be that overwhelming for people sometimes. They don't know how to deal with it, and it's hard. And so they feel like that's their only option. Also, try to make sure any treatments that are prescribed, the person is accepting of those things. The person that's actually dealing with the physical illness is accepting of the treatment that's going to be required, and be there to support them in that treatment. Also, too, if you have doubts about how the treatment should work or is working, or maybe there's some negative side effects that you've heard about certain medications or whatever, and you don't believe that that treatment is the healthiest route for them, make sure you're helping them to talk to their doctors about those things. So yeah, that is all that I have for today for Mental Health Monday. As we have discussed the impacts of physical health on our mental health, and a little bit vice versa. Any questions, any comments? I am very happy to address any questions or comments that you have. If you do have questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the comments section, and I will address them as appropriate. If I do not have the answer for you myself, I will research it and find it, try to point you in the right direction. Also, I want to remind you that I am available to come and speak to your work groups, faith-based groups, whatever, family reunions, small groups, whoever, your family. I'm here for you to address your mental health concerns and your mental health needs, to provide education as appropriate on the various aspects of our mental health. So with that being said, I appreciate you joining me today for Mental Health Mondays. Please be sure that you like this video, and that you share. These videos are public. Please share the information so that people can it can pique somebody's interest in something that they may need to address for themselves or for their families, for their communities. Again, I want to thank you for joining me for Mental Health Mondays, and remember that your mental health matters. Have an amazing week. Good morning, and welcome to Mental Health Monday. I am your host, Fran, and today we're going to do Mental Health Monday with a twist. So if you would, go ahead and share this video. We are going to do Mental Health Monday with a twist. Today we're going to do Mental Health Monday with a Q&A session. Good morning. Hey, Auntie. Good morning. I see Miss Phyllis. I see Lloyd. Good morning. While we're waiting, I just want to say thank you for joining me this morning. Good morning, Danita. Lloyd, I really enjoy your inspirational posts, your sharing about how you got to where you are. It's very inspirational. I appreciate you being transparent and open, even about your faith walk, all of that kind of stuff. So kudos to you and all of your endeavors, to you and your family. And I'm thankful for the connection between, due to Jonathan, getting connected to him. So kudos to you, and keep doing what you do. Keep being great. Good morning, Danita Loren. Good morning, Phyllis. All right. So I got enough people to get rolling here. I wanted to offer a different perspective this morning by offering a time where you can ask questions. Most of the time when you come on Mental Health Monday, when you join me, I am sharing from a particular topic. So this morning, what I wanted to do was offer you an opportunity to ask questions pertaining to mental health. So I want to give people, good morning, Letitia. Hi, Regina, Shanika. Good morning. Good morning to everyone. Good morning, Miss Angela. So I wanted to give everybody an opportunity to ask questions, and we'll do a Q&A session. I will preface it with this. I do not have all the answers. So if I don't have the answer for you right off the bat, it is my hope that you would research on that particular topic for you and maybe send you a link or inbox you with information. So, questions, anything about mental health. Maybe you want to find out more about the roles that I play. Maybe you want to find out more about the different diagnoses. Maybe you want to find out more about services. Maybe you want to find out more about how you can be supportive of a family member or a friend, or even of yourself who may be having difficulties with managing mental health symptoms. So, questions and answers. Anybody. So you can start with anything. I'm actually going to share some information that I think would be helpful. Again, one of the things that I often have shared, most of the time if I share from an article or a particular writing, it is from psychology. If I share resources, most often it's going to be shared from psychologytoday.com. So that's a resource that I'd like to share. On that particular website, you have the ability to search for different services by your city. So if you're looking for an outpatient therapist, you can search there. If you're looking for a person who prescribes meds, a psychiatrist, you can search there, and it will allow you to search by the city that you live in, which I think is a very cool tool. I think it's a very cool option to have on a website. So often people are looking for resources, people are looking for a place to start, and they're not even really sure what's available to them. So I think this is a really good way to search for particular resources in your city. So that's a start, psychologytoday.com. So any questions? Hey, Kiara. I see Pastor Gatling's watching with us. Good morning. So, all right, I'm going to shift this camera down just a little bit because I don't like it where it was. All right, so there we go. Questions? Anybody got questions? I know somebody has questions on here, especially those who work in the faith-based community, or maybe work with youth, maybe you work with people who have some type of challenge that you see, but you're not quite sure what it is. Maybe you yourself have been experiencing some things. Now, I don't by any means proclaim that you should just air all your dirty laundry on Facebook Live, but I do want to be helpful. So I know people have questions. So, hey, Corey. Hey, hello, Miss Linda. Pastor Futrell. Anybody have questions? Has there been any topics that we've discussed previously on Mental Health Monday that you want me to go back and kind of review? Anybody got questions? Good morning, Lisa. So I'll answer a question. So while I'm waiting for some of you to maybe formulate your questions, I'll answer a question I'll answer something that I think is important for me to share. More often than not, working in this field, I've gotten called Dr. Fran. So just for clarity's sake, maybe it's a prophetic piece in some way, but I am a licensed professional counselor. I obtained my doctorate degree in this field. So that's just for clarity's sake. Doing a study on strongholds. Oh, that's good. Okay. So doing a study on strongholds. So most of the time, I'll answer it from a mental health perspective and a spiritual perspective, with consideration that I know that you are of the Christian faith, Letitia. What I will say is, from the mental health side, most of the time when we deal with things that are difficult for us to overcome in our minds, even our faith starts with what we believe. It starts with what we've been taught, what we've been accustomed to. So it takes a lot of time to sometimes break those things set our minds to unlearn for the sake of trying to break something down, unlearn a particular way of doing or being. Spiritually, on the spiritual side, strongholds can be difficult because it's not a natural thing. It's something that's spiritual in nature. So what I would say is that your mind and your spirit have to match up. So in order for that to happen, in order for us to kind of manage those areas of our lives that seem to be more difficult to unlearn or undo, certain things that have been taught, certain things that have been ingrained, I would definitely say that we have to work on our minds. So starting with our minds and what we believe, we have to address what's there. Sorry for the interruption and delay. We have to address what's going on in our minds first, because I'm a believer that what we believe here directly impacts our mental functioning, and it impacts our spiritual functioning. What we believe starts in our minds, so we have to start there, and we have to be diligent and consistent in addressing whatever issue it is that has been a difficult thing for us to handle. I hope that answered your question. Good morning to everybody that's continuing to come on. So I would say that's the way that strongholds tie in with mental health. You have to be consistent in breaking it down. Things that are a consistent challenge for you, you have to consistently break it down here. You have to catch thoughts that you know are consistent of behavior, of belief, and you have to see what it is you need to do to redirect that thought. In the mental health field, there is an approach called the cognitive behavioral approach to therapy. So what it does is it addresses unhealthy patterns of thinking, of believing, and how that impacts our behaviors, how we interact with other people. So I would say that's a place where you could start. Maybe you could begin to look at how am I thinking about things and catch thoughts before they get out of control. Because most of the time we know when we're going on we're getting ready to go on a roller coaster ride with our thoughts. Like in the sense that once it starts, it's hard to slow it down and it goes in the same cycle. So we have to catch it as the speed is increasing. We have to slow those thoughts, control. So I hope that was helpful with answering your question. Okay, anybody else have questions? Anybody else have questions? Anybody else have things that you've seen recently about mental health that you want more information about? Because sometimes we live in the day and age where technology makes everything accessible within seconds. So sometimes we have information that we're exposed to that we don't necessarily know all we need to know about it, so that we can make informed decisions about if we want to incorporate it into our lives and what we do. So have you seen anything in the news as it concerns mental health that is eye-catching to you? Anybody? Okay. Let's see. How about I don't know if you all remember when we talked about, like, when we first really started getting into mental health Mondays, and we would talk about the different symptoms of various diagnoses. One of the things that we addressed was anxiety, the symptoms of anxiety, and the symptoms of depression. We addressed those, and those are topics that we've kind of touched on throughout our time together here on Mental Health Mondays. So I'm wondering if anybody has recently dealt with those particular symptoms themselves, or they know of somebody. Just to review: anxiety, sometimes people experience panic attacks where they have physical health issues that are a manifestation of so they have heart palpitations, they sweat, their hands get clammy, they feel like the room is spinning, they black out because they're overly stressed or overly anxious. So has anybody here experienced those type of symptoms, or know anybody that has experienced those type of symptoms? Okay. What about depression? With depression, there is typically an overall low mood for more days than not. And the person has a hard time doing day-to-day functions. Most of the time too, with just kind of taking a step back, looking at all mental health diagnoses, one of the things is what makes diagnoses kind of clinically valid is that what makes clinical in nature is that they impact our day-to-day functioning. They impact the way that we interact with the world around us. They impact how we work, how we play, how we maybe do our jobs, all those types of things, how we may be able to complete daily activities. So that's one of the hallmarks of any particular symptoms that you see that are what we call clinically significant, is that it impacts your daily function significantly. So anybody have some questions about that? All right, well, let me go back to depression. So I was talking about the overall low mood. We would talk about motivation. We look at motivation to accomplish tasks with depression. With somebody whose appetite changes. They are either eating a lot, they gained maybe a month or so, 2 months, or they've lost a lot of weight, maybe within the last 2 months or so. They've also maybe more withdrawn from other people. Sometimes we see people who appear that they may be introverts, but they may actually be depressed. So we may need to talk to them and find out, hey, what's going on in your life, and maybe see how we can be of aid or assistance to them. Another piece with depression is that a person may have recurring thoughts of death. And to clarify suicidal ideations, kind of make the distinction between somebody who is maybe trying to actively take their life over somebody who's just kind of having thoughts. Suicidal ideations are typically thoughts, can fall in the thought range of not wanting to wake up. They don't mind if they don't wake up in the morning. But then, that too, as a clinician, those to me, we can kind of help to remedy and work toward a solution for that person, helping them to address what it is that's driving that particular piece versus them having a clear plan. So if you talk to somebody and they say something about wanting to harm themselves, but they don't have like a clear plan, maybe we can help them. But then on the other side, they might have a clear plan. They know when they want to do it. They know how they want to do it. And we got to be really careful to watch out for those that we know that deal with depression on a regular basis, because sometimes people are so down. I've heard of stories where people who had significant issues with depression, severe depression, they don't even have the strength in their own lives. So some people who have been severely depressed, they had to come to a place where they even had enough strength to do what it is that they planned to do. And then when it seemed like they were doing better, when it seemed like they were coming out of it, that's when they actually committed the act of taking their own lives, because they actually were feeling good enough to do it. And we are thinking, oh, they must be getting better. No, this is the time that we need to check in on them, because they might be feeling good enough to take their own life now. Not just better in the sense of, oh, we want you to feel better. A lot of men that deal with depression during Father's Day because of loss of contact with kids. How do we deal with that as a support system? Okay, so if we're talking in the sense of being a support system to the men that don't have confidence. What we can, it's kind of, what we can do is be there for them. Listen, because with the way our justice system is set up right now, with all of the different orders and protective things you can get put in place, it could be very easy for a parent who may have their own issues, who's dealing with their own stuff, to kind of put different things in place through the court system to disallow contact between a child and their father. What I would say is let them talk about it, and create a safe place for them to do it. One of the things that our society has taught men is that it's not okay for them to share their feelings. It's them being a sissy if they talk about their feelings. And what does that even mean? But I would say create a safe place. Maybe allow them to have time where they can come and talk to you about what's going on with them internally. And encourage them to seek professional help, because at the end of the day, guys tend to pin in a lot and they don't always open up as easily. So encourage them to seek professional help. But just listen. That's the biggest thing, because if there's court orders and things in place that won't allow for them to have that contact, if it's one of those cases where it's court ordered, then that's the best that we can do as a support system, is just to be there and encourage them, to let them know that somebody's here to at least listen, even if we can't really understand. In other cases where it's not necessarily court of contact, through just issues of life, separation, maybe they've had experiences where children distance themselves from them, the same thing still applies. Encourage them and let them know, hey, you have a place where you can process this, and when it's time, you can work toward maybe pursuing a relationship with those children. But also encourage them that if they're, in some cases, legal action may be helpful with them too. It's even how's that, and you may say, well, how's that related to the depression? Because sometimes fathers feel powerless when it comes to their children, especially with custody issues, because there are so many things it seems like it's against them. But I would say encourage them to pursue legal help, and helping them to feel empowered to do some situation. That's something that I would say could be helpful as well. Joanne, thanks for sharing that and being transparent about your issues with depression. It's really difficult to tell. I don't know why over time, we made talking about depression and mental health issues, I don't know why we made it so taboo, but I think it kind of stems from this whole idea that if you can see it, then it's real, because it's not a physical ailment that somebody can see, then it's not as real. So I hope that you have begun to have the type of help and develop the type of support system that you need to help you to work through it. But thanks for sharing that. You're welcome. I hope that was helpful. I don't really know how helpful that was, but if you need more information, that's something that I can do research on. So I got my little pad and pen and stuff here, so I can write it down, because that's a specific, that is a specific population. Okay. You know what? Because I think I might actually, that sounds like a mental health Monday topic. Thanks for giving me another topic to research. Yeah, it is, for people who deal with depression, it is a daily battle. Yes, it can affect your physical being. Because if you're not take care of your body the way that you should, so it can function as it should, so it impacts you physically. It can impact you physically that way. Okay. Any other questions, comments? It's a lot of people joining me. I see William joined me, Lex, Toya, Felicia, Tisha, Tracy, Miss Tracy, Pastor Finner. I see Anthony. Thank you all for joining me. Anybody else have questions, comments, concerns? If you have questions, let's talk about procrastination. Ooh, that is good. Okay. I'm so glad you said that. Procrastination. What is procrastination? Procrastination is waiting until the very last, if or a task to complete, you wait until it is, okay, Jawan, I'm in Lafayette, Indiana. It's hard to find a place to go. Okay, so I definitely need you to check out the psychologytoday.com. I need you to check that out and put in therapist. Search by therapist and search by your city that you live in and see what's close to you. Procrastination is waiting until the last second to do something. Most of the time, why do we procrastinate? Most of the time we procrastinate on things, and I'm speaking from personal experience. I procrastinate on things that I don't particularly want to get done. I don't particularly want to do them. They have to be done. So I wait until until it's almost due to complete the task or to start the task. Procrastination, as far as mental health is concerned, when working with people and just in my own personal experience, is that sometimes I procrastinated because I have a fear of failing at something. So sometimes procrastination can be rooted in fear, not just waiting until the last second because we don't want to do it. Why is it that we don't want to do something? Is it rooted in fear? Is it rooted in maybe fear of rejection? Is it rooted in maybe fear of failure? So oftentimes, if it's something that we don't want to do or that we are putting it off to get it done, there is some type, I have found for myself personally, there is some type of fear associated with not pursuing it and not putting it in place. Mine has been related more often than not to fear of rejection, fear of failure. So yeah, I would say that. Can you tell me, anybody else deal with procrastination and what yours, you think maybe yours is connected to? Yeah, that's definitely been mine though. Danita, did you have anything you wanted to share about your procrastination or maybe why it's been a challenge for you? Y'all, I have a hotline this morning, so y'all have to pardon me. Can it also fear of confrontation? Fear of confrontation. Yes, that's perfect. Fear of confrontation. So sometimes it's difficult to address the issues that we need to address. Sometimes we don't know what the outcome is going to be. We address the person or the thing. What is going to be their response? So fear of confrontation has definitely been a reason why I procrastinated as well. Danita, I love what you're saying here about being in this flow under pressure, feeling like you will fail. I see you, Mom. See more. I'm trying to see more what you said. Okay, here we go. No, it won't. So we have to, that's where addressing those fears in therapy can be helpful. So I would see if it's a fear, if there's an underlying fear. I would go talk to somebody, and I would go to see it. You know, I'm always going to recommend therapy because I'm a therapist, I'm a counselor, so that's always going to be one of my recommendations. Because here's one of the things that I'm finding and working in this field is that people often know what it is that they have challenges with. It's there, they know what it is, but they have a hard time processing it and expressing it because they never had a place to do it. And so now when they have a therapist, there's a place. It's open, it's free. If you have the right therapist, of course. Sometimes it takes a minute to find the right therapist, but you can freely address those issues. So no, we don't have to just wait till we get in the flow when we're under pressure. It's not gonna always be the best outcome if we wait till the last second to address certain things. We won't always have the outcome that we desire. Sometimes we cannot, if there are tasks that we waited till the last second. So I definitely would say, go see a therapist. Talk about some of the things that you would like to accomplish, and talk about some of your reasons why. Begin to address some of the reasons why you haven't started pursuing it. Maybe there's a fear of some sort underlying procrastination. So, any other questions? I hope that was helpful. Pacing yourself too, though. Once you figure out what the fear, if it's a fear that's related to, once you figure out what that is related to, then you can address that piece, and then you can begin to set. One of the things that helps me is to set pace myself with certain things. If I have a certain deadline to pace myself by this week, I'm getting this done by the end of this. Something like tangible right away that can be helpful with procrastination. But yeah, I definitely have seen more often than not personally and working with my clients that is an underlying thing with procrastination. We don't deal with the stuff that we deal with because we're not quite sure. We have a fear of how it's going to turn out, or if we'll be judged, or if we'll be looked at differently, or if we'll be rejected. And here's the thing about rejection. The reason why we feel rejected by somebody else is related to us not seeing ourselves maybe in the most positive light, and seeing that person or what they're doing as something that's maybe better, or being in a better place than where we are. So in comparison of ourselves to another person or another situation, sometimes we procrastinate because we don't feel like we measure up. So we'll wait to get things done. Maybe we're feeling like we don't measure up. So maybe connected to how we see ourselves too, and our abilities. So that's something personally I've dealt with too. So one thing about me I'll share too is that I don't have a problem being transparent about some things, because transparency helps. One of the things though I am finding though, that as I'm using this platform, that I need to be well informed on my own challenges before I share them here, because I don't want to send you down a rabbit trail and I haven't even processed my own things the way that I need to, in a way to share it so it's beneficial to you. So more questions, more comments. Anybody else have questions or comments? All right. Well, this was good. So here's what we'll do. The next time that we do a question and answer session for Mental Health Monday, what I will do is just let you all know, hey, we're going to do a quick question and answer session ahead of time, so you can maybe prepare some questions that you may have for me to answer. And always keep in mind that if I cannot answer it here on Facebook, then I will answer it. If you would send me, I'll try to get an answer for you if you can send it to me in inbox. Haven't felt. Excuse me. Oh yeah, that's a challenge in addressing our mental health for sure. Sometimes people, we ask people how they're doing, and then when they tell us, we don't. So we have to make time to hear people. Sometimes we ask questions of how you're doing in passing. Sometimes we should just say hello if we're not willing or if we don't have the time that we need to take time with that person to really hear what they're experiencing. Because we might ask somebody in passing, how you doing? They say, I'm doing all right. That means that they need to talk about it a little bit more, or they need to express something else about what's going on with them. So if we don't really want to hear how somebody's doing, we shouldn't ask. So it shouldn't just be something that we just do, and that's something that we do in our culture and in this country. We just walk in passing. Hey, how you doing? Do we really want to know? Let's take time, if we can, to listen to somebody and hear what they're expressing. They may need to share something about what they're going through. Let's take a minute. Anything else? All right, people. Well, it's been good. Thank you so much for joining me for Mental Health Monday. And I appreciate you sharing this video with those who may be on your timeline, friends here on Facebook. I also want to encourage you to continue joining me for Mental Health Monday. I thank you for your support. And I also want to make sure that you are taking care of I can't make sure, but I want to encourage you anyway to take care of your mental health in ways that are productive for you. If you're having any symptoms like the ones that we discussed today or previously, I would encourage you, go seek professional help. Go talk to somebody. Find the person. Don't stop till you find the person that because every counselor's not a good fit for everybody, and that's okay. But don't stop until you get what you need. Don't stop until you are able to process how you need to, so you can overcome the challenges and issues in your life, and continue to move forward and to be more aware of what your needs are, so that you can address them in ways that are healthy for you moving forward. So, as always, thank you again for joining me for Mental Health Monday. Please share, spread the word about Mental Health Mondays. I will tell you this. Next week, I will be on vacation, so we will not have Mental Health Monday on next week. So we will resume the following week. I have to practice what I preach. So I'm going on a vacation to do some self-care downtime. So definitely am becoming more and more aware for myself that I need to do the same things that I share with you to do. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. That being said, have a wonderful Monday. Have an amazing week. I hope you do something to take care of your mental health this week. I hope you begin to address any issues and challenges that you may be having. I want you to remember that your mental health matters. Have a great week. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is your girl Fran here, joining you hoping that you join me for Mental Health Mondays, and thankful for those that are joining me for Mental Health Monday. I am going to give a few more people a chance to come on, and we'll get started. I hope everyone had a great weekend. I hope that you are off to a great start for your week. For those who may be dealing with some losses in your family during this time of the year, my prayers and thoughts are with you. So if you're not having such a great day, I'm thinking about you and you're in my prayers. So I'm going to give a couple more minutes, maybe a minute or two, for some people to come on. Today's topic is stats for mental health for our youth in the state of Virginia. Now, I do realize that some of my viewers are not living in this state, but one of the things that I'd like to encourage you to do is to do some research on the website that I'm going to share, and you can search mental health stats by your state. So, and if you could, when you come in, just say good morning, and I'd love to see you and greet you back. Good morning, Jaquan. Hope you're doing well. So we're going to talk about mental illness in Virginia's youth, stats for mental illness in Virginia's youth. So I think this could be especially useful for parents, for teachers, anyone who works in school systems or works in any facility where children are served. So I think this is going to be a very important topic. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. So good morning, Adrian. So I'm going to start with some statistics for the state of Virginia. And I think this is important for us to recognize some of the pieces to mental health issues that maybe our youth are dealing with. If we are aware of how statistically significant mental health illness is, then maybe we can be better equipped. We can be better informed on how and when to intervene when we see our youth who are dealing with mental health issues. The truth of the matter is we live in a world that is ever evolving, ever changing by the second. They have access to information much quicker. They're able to then utilize that information to make determinations about choices that they're going to make in life, as well as how they see themselves and how they view the world. So I think it's very important for us to understand that how much mental illness is impacting the state that we live in, so that we can do what we can on our end as far as advocating, as far as support to assist our youth with overcoming mental health challenges. So one of the biggest things that I'm going to share this information from, good morning, Relinda. I'm going to share this information from the National Alliance on Mental Illness. This information that I'm sharing comes from the National Alliance on Mental Illness. You always know that I am going to encourage you to go and do your own research after you have watched the Mental Health Monday that I share. But I'm going to go ahead and give you some stats, and I think these are going to be kind of alarming with regard to the number. So some general stats, not specifically for the state of Virginia. These are some more general stats that the National Alliance on Mental Illness highlighted, and these are very startling. It says 20%, which is the equivalent of 10.8 million children and adolescents are experiencing a mental disorder. Wow. 10.8 million are experiencing some type of mental disorder. Children and adolescents. We're not talking about adults. We're talking about children and adolescents. Then 10% experience mental illness severe enough to cause impairment in the home, in the school, in the community settings. And less than half of that percentage, less than 5% of those children will receive the treatment that they need. Wow. So not only do we have millions of children who are experiencing mental health disorders or mental illness, mental health challenges, there are so many millions that are not even receiving the treatment that they need. And so it goes back to the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I believe that if we're more educated on mental health, on certain events and how they impact our mental health, on our health and how that impacts our physical health and how that impacts our mental health, I believe that we can be better equipped to help these children. And one of the main reasons that I have begun Mental Health Monday so that we can be educated on recognizing symptoms of mental illness, symptoms of mental health challenges. So I'm hoping that in the efforts that I'm making and many of my colleagues are making to educate our communities on mental health, that these numbers will go down. We shouldn't have millions of children who are not getting treatment for mental health illness. And I would venture to say that much of that is probably due to people not really recognizing that there are some mental health delays, some mental health challenges that are going on. Many of people are not even able to recognize them themselves as far as adults are concerned. So it's going to be much more difficult for them to recognize it in their children. So here's some mental health care needs that if they're unmet, they can have serious consequences for children and their families. So some of the consequences are strained social relationships, which I can speak and attest to personally because I have the experience of working in the home with children who have significant behaviors, and in the home, in the community settings, they are banging their heads on the walls, tearing up, destroying property, assaulting people at home, at school, not open to authority. They're just dealing with a lot of things. They've experienced a lot. And so I can attest to the strained social relationships, and that's in the family as well as with their peers. Hi, Delvin. Bless you too. And so here's some other consequences of children not receiving the mental health care that they need. Poor academic performance and serious problems with managing adulthood. So here's the thing that I've seen with the poor academic performance, and I think it's important for us to highlight this piece because often teachers can maybe more privy to some of the challenges that our children are facing because they're in the classroom with the children most of the day. Like, our kids go to school in the morning. Most of our kids are at school between 7 and 4 o'clock. So they're and that's including high school and elementary school. So between those hours, our teachers and our administrators, guidance counselors are spending a lot of time with our children, in the presence of our children. So that's why I believe it's important for educators as well to be informed on different markers. If you have a child who is normally doing very well academically, then all of a sudden they are not doing well. They're failing to turn in assignments. They're failing to complete homework. They're failing to do classwork. They are failing tests. They're not doing well academically. That can be a significant sign to pay attention to and bring to the attention of the parent if you see those changes. And also, I believe, too, that it's important for us to note when those changes happen, because that can also tell us about maybe what time in life that they're dealing with challenges at home. So if teachers and administrators are being mindful to note changes in behavior, and when they are seeing them, then they can make parents aware of when they saw the changes in the behaviors, and then we can have some correlation between maybe life events outside of the school setting that are causing challenges with their academic performance. All right. Now, some other studies have shown that children who have mental health disorders have an increased risk of dropping out of school, alcohol and drug usage, as well as criminal activity. Now, to clarify, that does not mean that just because a child deals with a mental health disorder or challenge in their childhood, they will necessarily grow up and have these challenges, but the risk is much higher if they are having these challenges in childhood that are not addressed properly. All right. So let's go to the Virginia overview, and here's some stats for the state of Virginia. About 102,000 children and adolescents in Virginia have a serious emotional disturbance, and 65% of them are extremely impaired. And that means that Virginia is sharing similar trends with the nation. So across the nation, Virginia is kind of falling in line with the trends that are in other states. So one of the fallbacks, though, is that Virginia hasn't placed as much emphasis on treatment and services. Only 7%, hear this, Only 7% of mental health expenditures in Virginia go to children under the age of 18, which is a serious problem because that's when a lot of children are dealing with mental health challenges. They are dealing with them at earlier ages. 4 and 5 years old, we have children who are dealing with depression, who are dealing with not wanting to be alive anymore. We have young children who are dealing with certain mental health disorders. So for only 7% of the expenditures for mental health to be going to children under the age of 18, there is a problem, because the earlier we can catch these symptoms, the earlier we can recognize these things are going on with our children, that's the earlier that we can help them to develop healthier coping skills and have better outcomes in adulthood. Okay? Now, CSB stands for Community Services Board. So in the state of Virginia, there are several. I know in the Hampton Roads area, there's pretty much one community service board in the 7 cities, per 7 cities. So Norfolk has a community services board. Newport News and Hampton, I believe, share a community services board. Then Portsmouth has a community services board. Suffolk has a community services board. So some of the 7 major cities have community services boards in their cities. So community services board is meant to meet the mental health needs of those who may not be able to access more intensive services and just help them to manage their mental health in the best way possible. That's the purpose of the community services board. Now, of youth, thank you, Pastor Dwight. Thanks so much. Of the youth that are receiving services from the community services boards, this is according to a report in 2008 by the Inspector General. 6 of the state's 40 CSBs, 6 of them do not have a child adolescent department. Wow. So that means there's a bunch of kids in those 6 cities or localities that are not getting the help that they need, because there is no, in that setting, there's no community, there is no section for treatment of adolescents and children. At that time, the report also found that more than half of youth clients in CSB treatment had mixed or only partial improvement after a year of services. Only partial or mixed improvement. That's not good after more than a year of services. So what that says to me as a mental health professional, one who has served in different sectors of mental health, particularly in the in-home, one of the things that we tried to do was ensure that our children had what we call wraparound services. We tried to make sure that they were linked to multiple community services. That includes outpatient therapy. That includes psychiatric services for those who need medication to assist them with managing their mental health. That includes the school system, making the staff and the guidance counselors aware at the school, outpatient therapy. All of those pieces work together to try to wrap this child so that they can experience the type of progress that they need to help them to manage their mental health in healthier ways. So now here's another piece that I find disturbing as a mental health professional. And of course, these websites have to be updated. So some of these stats are a little bit older. So you may want to go on and see if you can find some more updated stats. But I want to share these because I would venture to say that some of them have not changed very much, which is unfortunate and sad for our children. So without the available and effective treatment, some youth with mental health issues may come to a point of crisis, for which crisis intervention is required. Most of the time, crisis intervention is required when a child's behaviors are out of control to the point that they are a threat of harm to themselves, or they pose a threat of harm to themselves or others. So that's when crisis happens. In 2005, about 5,000 children had crisis contacts with the Community Services Board, Emergency Services. So that's pretty for the amount of people that live in Virginia. It doesn't seem like a lot, but when we take into account how far-reaching those things can have an effect long term, 5,000 is a big number. So some of the advancements in mental health in the state of Virginia is that Virginia created the Comprehensive Services Act that was enacted in 1993, and it was designed to help provide youth in the state of Virginia with child-centered, family-focused, community-based, and cost-effective treatment. So the idea is that putting this program in place, this act in place, would help children to receive the services that they need. Now, one of the things that there's a few more stats here that I could share about the developments. One of which I will share because I feel like it's important, that since we highlighted the fact that there aren't as many funds set aside for mental health, the General Assembly in 2008 allocated $5.8 million for children's mental health services for the fiscal year of 2009 to 2010. And that was supposed to be spread out through the 40 community services boards that are in the state of Virginia. However, $5.8 million is really not a lot of money considering the number of children that need to be serviced. So the next steps to help us to service our children are to make sure that we are paying attention to these symptoms that we see. And then because we are paying attention to the symptoms that we see, we can then connect them to the appropriate services and treatment. So there's several different services that we can do to assist our children. And that includes coordination of care, which I was talking about before, where there's different services in place for the child, but we are all working together on a team. And those of us, maybe some of you are joining me, maybe work in the social work field. So you know what it is to connect with in-home and outpatient to ensure that the child is receiving adequate mental health treatment, and that multiple parts of the person are being addressed, not just one. So other suggestions for improvement are enhanced community-based resources, integrated funding, and family involvement in service planning for children. One of the things I will say about this part is that parents, you are your child's first advocate. If you don't speak up for them, then it's highly unlikely that anyone else will go to bat for them. You are their first advocate. You are the one, and I say this not just to biological parents, but to guardians, to godparents, whoever. If you're serving in a guardianship role, you are the child's first advocate. Please be paying attention to those markers, to those symptoms, to any changes that you may see in your child. Please pay attention to those things, because those are the things that will help those of us who are serving in the community settings to assist your child with the best clarity, the best understanding of the symptoms. Start documenting things that you see as far as changes in their behavior. When did you start seeing it? How often? How severe? Those are all things that when I go out to do assessments for intensive in-home or any other types of services, those are the questions that we have to ask. We have to ask, how long have you been seeing it? What have you been seeing? How severe has it been? What other services has this child had, so that we can ensure that they are getting the most appropriate treatment, they're getting the most appropriate diagnosis, because the more appropriate the diagnosis, the more effective and appropriate the treatment can be prescribed. So, also for the school system, school-based mental health services require funding and training for services such as mental health screenings, clinicians and day treatment programs. Day treatment can be really effective if it is used properly. Day treatment is essentially a place where the child can go to a clinician during the course of a school day and receive support in addition to the guidance counselor. So typically it's in school. You have to have this service in the school already for the child to have access to it. So I want to speak to anyone who is in charge of funding, who is in charge of approving services that could be supportive in nature for our children. Please let us get rid of all this red tape that will keep us from having these services in our schools. Let's be mindful of advocating if we need to, pass different laws, get different laws enacted. Let's do that so that we can get the funding that we need for these children so that they can receive the services that are available for them without having to jump through all of these hoops. Some of the services that are very difficult to get sometimes are because people have misused them in the past, and now they put in place these structures and these hurdles that people have to overcome to get the service. And the sad part about our mental health system and our medical system in a lot of ways is that prevention is not the first line. It seems to be a lot of reactive services, a lot of stuff that happens after the fact. Let's do some preventative things. Let's start paying attention to the needs of our children so that they don't fall into these statistics of children who are dealing with some mental health challenges but don't have the appropriate services to help them. Let's bring these stats down. Let's work together in our communities. Our community-based, some of our community-based programs that can be really helpful in addressing mental health needs are like our recreational centers. Sometimes we don't recognize how supportive those areas can be, because kids are gaining support from their peers. They're gaining support from community team players who are there to just uplift them and build them up. And so a lot of times we downplay the need for community recreational centers. Some of our children are dealing with depression because they don't really feel that they have anyone to talk to, anyone to go to. Those types of settings allow for that child to connect with others who may be experiencing similar things, but also they have somebody that they can talk to, and they also have the adult support in place there as well. So let's work to build up our community agencies. Let's work to get the funding that we need. If that's your thing, go for it. If you know how to get the funds, you know how to write grants and things of that nature, please do. I will say that that's not my area of strength, but I'll do my part, which is to help address the issues in outpatient therapy. So I'll do my part. So let's all do our part to make sure that we are advocating for our children's mental health so that all the parts of who they are can be positively impacted. Keep an eye on them, watch them, make sure that they're not a statistic. Some of the things that I talked about as far as the mental health diagnoses and things of that nature, or even the prevalence of certain diagnoses, the prevalence of certain statistics can be decreased as we're working together. So let's pull together and do what's best for these children. They deserve the best. They didn't ask to be here, so we owe them to go to bat for them. When they present things to us, when they present challenges, when they present things that they need for us to do, let's go to bat for them. Let's make sure that we are accommodating of their needs. So I want to thank you this morning for joining me for Mental Health Monday, and I want to encourage you to share the video. Let's advocate for our children. Let's bring these stats down, not just in the state of Virginia, but all throughout the United States, so our children can be well and we can start moving in a more positive direction with helping people to live their best lives. So thank you again. Share, and I want you to remember that your mental health matters. Have an amazing week. I'll see you the next time. morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. This is Fran this morning with you, joining you for Mental Health Monday. And I am so excited to have you here with me this morning. And I hope that you are having a productive and awesome day so far. So I'm going to give some people a chance to come on. And as you're coming on, I want to encourage you to invite someone to watch with us today. And when we're finished, I'd like to encourage you to share the video. Share. This is how we get the information out that we need to get out about healthy mental functioning. So I want to encourage you to share this morning. So good morning as you're coming on. I see you, Michelle. I see you, hubby. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Please share the video as you're coming in. Good morning, Uncle Tim. Good morning. Good morning. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to talk a little bit about, well, a lot about really, how we can approach the conversation of mental health with someone that we're concerned about. So as you are aware, if you've been watching Mental Health Mondays for any length of time, you would know that we've shared about a lot of different topics as it concerns our mental health. We've talked about depression, we've talked about trauma, we've talked about anxiety, we've talked about the impact of certain mental health illnesses on our other parts of who we are. We've talked about how they can impact other people, our communities, if they are not appropriately addressed. So we talked about also how we can take better care of ourselves physically as well, so that we can address the mental health issues that we may be having, how what we eat, how exercise, all those things impact our mental health. The other piece that I really would like to emphasize today is how we have the conversation. So many of you have been watching, and I would venture to say that you are seeing or starting to recognize some of the symptoms, some of the signs of mental health issues or concerns in maybe your own life or in the lives of people who you know, maybe family members, maybe friends, coworkers, whoever it may be. Good morning. So as you're coming on, for those who just joined us, please make sure you share the video. We're talking about how to have the conversation of mental health concerns with those that we care about, with those that we love. Maybe it's a coworker, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a family member, distant cousin, close relative like a parent, a brother, a sister. So it can be very hard to do this and have this type of conversation because, for one, we have this major stigma about mental health and what it means to be diagnosed with a mental health illness. And there's a lot of people, even though there's a lot of celebrities now who are being more vocal and being more proactive about sharing about their mental health illnesses. There's still a lot of stigma attached to having conversation about mental health and what it means to have a mental illness. So I have some recommendations that I'm going to start off with, and then we're going to talk about some of the ways that we can kind of get rid of the stigma and start having open conversations about mental health with the people that we love and not shame them. Because a lot of people feel shamed into dealing with their mental health illnesses, and they don't feel supported. Good morning, Elder Randolph. A lot of people don't feel like they're supported, so they don't really want to have the conversation, and they don't really want anybody to have the conversation with them. So let's talk about that. So the first thing that I recommend as a mental health professional is that you talk to the person. Just go to them. If they're in a state, if they're calm, and another thing is, if you're going to have this conversation with a person, you need to make sure that they are in the state of mind, being that they're calm, being that they're relaxed when you go to them to have this conversation. You do not want to try to engage them with this type of conversation if they are elevated or if they are dealing with some mood challenges or changes at that moment. You want to wait until they are more calm and maybe more receptive of what you have to say. So conversation starter would be simply, I'd like to have a conversation with you. So that opens the door. It's non-threatening. They don't feel like you're trying to attack them in any way. They don't feel like, oh, maybe they feel some type of way toward me. What's going on? So you always want to open it with just having a conversation. We're just having a conversation. We are keeping an even tone, conversational level of voice. We don't have to elevate our voices to talk to them. And if someone's elevated, meaning that their behaviors and their emotions are not at a place where they're more controlled, then they're not ready to have that conversation yet. So after you state that you'd like to have a conversation, the next piece that you want to add is the types of behaviors and the signs that you've been seeing that something more could be going on. So you can start that with, I've been seeing, and talk about the different behaviors and the signs that you've been seeing that they have had. For example, someone who is dealing with depression, you may have seen a change in their social activity. You may have seen a change in their appetite. You may have seen a change with how bubbly they are. They might be a little bit more irritable. You may have seen them not enjoy things that they normally would enjoy. They're not going out with friends. They're staying in the house. They may go to work, but they come straight home. And when they go home, they go in their bedroom. So maybe you are a spouse, or maybe you are a brother or sister, or a parent who lives in the home with this person. Your next piece is what you would share with them about what you're seeing. I've been seeing, or I've noticed that you're more withdrawn, or you're going in your room and you're alone a lot. I've noticed that you're not eating as well. Then you talk about, I'm concerned. You talk about the symptoms, you talk about the signs that you're seeing, and then you say, I'm concerned. Because it needs to come from a place of genuine concern that you share your thoughts about what's going on with that person with them. Because at the end of the day, no one is going to open up with you about maybe some things that they really have been experiencing, things that you may have been seeing, and things that they are aware that are going on. They might not be as likely to open up with you if they don't genuinely feel that you are concerned about what's going on with them. So talk about the signs. I've been seeing blah, blah, blah sign, this, that, and the other. Then say, I am concerned, and I'm concerned about you. I'm concerned about how you're doing. Then the next thing you can offer is to ask how I can be supportive. How can I be supportive of you? How can I be supportive of you? And when you have that, when you ask that question, you need to already have educated yourself based on the signs and the symptoms that you've seen about what it could possibly be, so that you're already equipped with supportive materials. Maybe it's a pamphlet, maybe it's a phone number, maybe it's a community agency that offers counseling services, maybe it's a psychiatrist, someone who is prescribing medication. Maybe you have those types of resources and things available for them already prior to having this talk. You don't have to present them right away. You kind of gauge whether you can present them by how they respond to your sharing of the symptoms and the signs that you are concerned about. And then after you've asked how you can be supportive, because sometimes you'll find that sometimes people don't know because they've never really had the type of experience before with dealing with mental illness. And you'll also find that they may have known already and just were kind of afraid to say, I need this help. So Oh, you're asking a very good question, Mr. Elder Randolph. I see your question. I'm going to get to you in just a second here. You said, let me read your question out loud. How do we get the person to realize they may suffer from depression without them getting defensive? So this approach that I'm talking about is you can utilize this approach across different types of diagnoses. So if a person, like for example, the defensiveness may naturally come in because of the stigma of mental health. So you may not be able to get around the person being defensive, but if you're utilizing this more caring approach with interacting with them, you may be able to get them to take their guard down again. So just to kind of review that for you, I'd like to have a conversation with you. I've been seeing that you're more withdrawn. I've been seeing that you're not eating well. I've been seeing that you're more likely to be alone. And I've been seeing that you're not interacting as much. I've been seeing that you're not enjoying the things that you used to enjoy. And I'm concerned about you. And so that tacking that phrase on I'm concerned lets that person know that you're not trying to attack them, you're not trying to belittle them because of the challenges that they're having at that moment. So that you can't always, even with a more supportive approach like the one I'm presenting, you still may not be able to get around them responding defensively because the stigma of mental health and what it means is so prevalent, even with all of the information that we've been hearing about how we can get help and how to recognize signs and symptoms. Is still this huge stigma. And I was just having a conversation with someone yesterday about how we don't have a problem with people taking medication for their physical health needs. If someone has heart disease or high blood pressure or cancer or any number of medical issues, many times those people are taking medication to treat those particular diagnoses of their physical health. So there is no stigma attached because it's physical. It's something that people can readily see most of the time if they're dealing with a physical issue. One of the things that I have been privy to hear multiple times is because mental health is not something that you may be able to visibly see with your eyes that a person is experiencing. Because if you work with someone, you may never know that they have a mental health issue. They may do well with hiding it. They may do well with managing it, not necessarily hiding it, because sometimes people have learned, if they've been dealing with a mental health condition or illness for any period of time, they may have learned how to manage it well. And so you may not even know, but they may have a bad day and it's not as easily managed. And you say, well, what's wrong? And they're not saying my stomach hurts or my head hurts. They may not be able to explain to you what they're experiencing, but it is impacting every part of who they are. So I only encourage you to utilize that approach. I want to have a conversation. I'm seeing this, and this. I'm concerned. How can I be supportive? Be equipped with the information that you think could be supportive, whether like I mentioned, it's pamphlets, phone numbers, whether it's information that they might not be privy to. And then also too, one thing I want to highlight is how you approach the person can also be predicated on your relationship with them. So how you have this conversation, I still recommend kind of using this same framework, but how quickly or how you approach the situation or the conversation is based on what type of relationship you have with that person, and also how much you've educated yourself on what you're seeing prior to having the conversation with them. Why does the Black community have issues addressing mental health, particularly in our churches? That is a really good question. Let me come back to that after we talked a little bit more about some of these other pieces. And I want to highlight, with regard to how we have the conversation, how can you be supportive? You need to recognize how your approach is seen to that person. It needs to be careful, it needs to be kind, it needs to be considerate, and it needs to be assertive. Careful, because you cannot control how a person may respond. Some people may get angry with you. So if you have a conversation with someone, even if you use the framework that I presented, they still may get angry. They still may say, well, what do you mean? They may be in an uproar. It may trigger some feelings of anger for them. And that anger is typically triggered because of the stigma that's attached. But be careful, because you cannot control how that person may respond. Be kind. Be kind. Be kind, because the person is a human being. A mental illness does not take away from the fact that this is a person. This is a living, breathing human being. They are not an alien. I repeat, a person with a mental illness is not an alien. They operate differently than the average person, for lack of a better term, but they are not an alien. They are still a human being. They still have some of the same issues with functioning all of us have on a daily basis. It's just within the context of a mental illness. So treat them like a person when you approach them. Being considerate, in that you may want to think about how you would feel if someone shared their concerns, the same type of concerns with you. So think about in how you approach that person. Let it be guided by how you may react if someone shared those same concerns with you. So you may want to make sure that your tone and your volume of voice is not offensive. You don't want to have an elevated tone or volume. Be careful of inflections on certain words, like, I have this concern about. That can be insulting. Like, certain voice inflections and how we say what we say can be insulting. So we may genuinely have a concern, but we have to be careful about how we say it. Be assertive, because the person that you're talking to may have a hard time accepting what it is you're telling them. That doesn't mean you back down, per se, for lack of a better phrase. That doesn't mean you just don't share the concern with them because they give you a certain reaction with their face, or they move in a certain way. They may be taken aback if they are not already aware of the things that you're sharing with them. And then what you have to be mindful of is that sometimes this is the first time they're actually hearing this from someone else. They may have been experiencing all of the signs and the symptoms that you're sharing with them, but they may not have heard it from anybody else before. And internally, they're having a hard time accepting what it means to have possibly a mental illness. So, I want to go into how even more of what is okay to say, how we talk about it, and what's not. So let's talk about that. And in doing that, I found this article on psychologytoday.com, and the author is Dr. David Sussman, and he talks about the different ways that we talk about mental health. And one of the things that he highlighted that I think is very important is that when you're talking about mental illness, that you don't make the person their mental illness. In other words, saying John has schizophrenia versus John is schizophrenic. So you're making a difference between the person and their illness, just like we make a difference between the person and their illness as it concerns physical illness. So we don't necessarily like to say that somebody is diabetic. We may say that this person has diabetes, because you want to make a clear distinction between the person and what condition it is that they are dealing with. So, a few more other things that I'd like to share. When you are using diagnostic terms or words that describe the symptoms combined of what is going on with a person, you want to say that person has versus that person is. So we've talked about that. Don't say things like mentally disabled or mentally handicapped or mentally ill. So-and-so has a mental illness. So-and-so has this mental illness, versus ascribing that condition to the person. Be careful of using terms such as retarded or mentally retarded. someone may be offended by that, especially if you're talking about children. You may want to say they have an intellectual or developmental disability, which is what it is. It's a disability. It's a dysfunction. It's not a title that you ascribe to that person. Be careful of using terms like crazy, insane, psycho, nuts, deranged to describe somebody who is displaying unusual or violent behaviors, or they may have a mental health illness. Right. So you're not saying I'm bipolar. I have bipolar disorder if you have that particular disorder. If you've been diagnosed with that, you would say I have that disorder versus I am this person or I am this condition. That's right. Be careful of using words like addict, junkie, drunk, or any other derogatory terms that are related to addiction. Has a substance use disorder. So-and-so has a substance use disorder. Or so-and-so has an alcohol or drug problem. Because the truth of the matter is, let me just do a shameless plug here. Many of the people that have these illnesses, they don't ask for them. Like, just like people don't ask for cancer, people don't ask for diabetes, people don't ask to be to have certain physical illnesses. It happens. Our bodies are all susceptible to different diseases. Our minds are all susceptible to different things. So we have to be mindful of that. Saying brain damaged and demented. And as you can tell, a lot of this has to do with the language with which we talk about mental illness. When we talk about someone who may have committed suicide, they're saying we need to change our verbiage with that. And please understand that as I'm educating you, I'm being educated as well, because even as a mental health professional, I have ascribed certain terms to people and versus separating the person from the illness, or not verbalize things right in such a way that whoever I'm servicing or maybe their family members are not offended by what I'm saying as a mental health professional. Because the truth of the matter is if a person is offended by what you're saying to them, they're less likely to actually seek out the help that you're offering or that you're recommending for them to receive. So, say instead of saying committed suicide, maybe you could say died by suicide. Using terms of pity like suffering from, victim of, afflicted with. Maybe that you could say they have a history of, is being treated for, or lives with. Those are all ways that we can talk about mental health intelligently and less offensively. And some people may say, well, that's just the political correct way. But political correctness comes in when we don't want to be offensive. Let's just be for real. If we're very open about it. For example, we say African American to some people because we don't know how they like to be identified. That's called being politically correct, because we don't want to be offensive to someone else. So just in the same way that we apply political correctness to other things, let's apply it when it comes to our mental health and be mindful of how we say things and what we say, as well as how it could impact the person that we're talking to or talking about actually getting the help that they need. So also being mindful of describing everyday idiosyncrasies as a mental health disorder, such as that's my OCD kicking in, I'm so ADHD. Don't apply those terms that way to yourself. Being mindful of that. Another thing is that despite these guidelines that we're presenting today, we still have to respect each individual's preference for how they want to talk about their own mental health status. So some things that we may say out of respect, such as survivor, consumer, or person that we live with, or a person that lives with a certain disorder, we may want to be careful about how we even say what we need to say as it concerns the way that they deal with, or that they've coped with their mental illness. We need to ask them, how do you want to talk about this? How do you want to be referred to? What do you want me to say if somebody asks me a question? Let's say it's family members. For example, if a family member gets diagnosed with a mental health illness, how do you want me to talk about it to somebody if they ask me about it? We go to a family reunion. Somebody's heard that you were diagnosed with a mental illness. How do you want me to talk about it to them? Would you not like me to say anything at all? Do you want them to come to you? If it is, how do you want me to say certain things? So being mindful that we check in with the person that's actually living with the mental illness. Mr. Randolph asked a good question earlier, and I'm going to go back to it. He asked, how do we have the conversation? Why does the Black community have issues addressing mental health, particularly in our churches? Well, let's start with the fact that, excuse me, in the Black community, we were taught that if we have issues and problems, that we don't talk to anybody outside of our home. What goes on in this house stays in this house. So really a big taboo starts at home, but also it comes with what it means. Sometimes I think it has to do with what it means to be Black, because with our Black community, we associate strength, we associate courage, we associate a lot of different other positive adjectives to who we are, and that's because we've had to over time build ourselves up. So anything that takes away from being seen as the strong person that we need to be seen as kind of helps create and contribute to that stigma and that taboo of having the conversation. And particularly in our churches, let's talk about the fact that we are okay. Again, it kind of goes back to that concept that we are okay with people having physical illnesses in the church, and asking, for example, within the Christian faith, maybe we prayed for healing for someone, or maybe a person has had an ongoing medical health condition and they still take medication, they still love God, but they have this issue that has not been healed or resolved yet. We are okay as long as it's a physical thing, and we're okay as long as we can see it. If we can see that struggle, if we can see that person coming in on a cane, or with their oxygen tank on their face, or if we can see, well, the oxygen mask on their face, not the tank. If we can see it, then we tend to be a little bit more understanding than we are with things that we cannot see. And we ascribe demonic things to people's mental functioning. We ascribe spiritually demonic or oppressed things to a person, when that may be something that they have a struggle with, but they may not. It may be a mental health piece that they are dealing with. It may be in addition to that, or maybe not at all. So sometimes people won't come to get help from church because of that. And people don't know how to have the conversations in our churches about it. Because the truth of the matter is, we have to remember, if we're talking about our ministries, our religious affiliations, and our functionings in our ministries and churches, being educated, we have to remember that we need to have these conversations, because what's going on in a person's physical body can be a direct result of something that they're experiencing mentally. Many people have heart-related, stress-related issues, and they're taking blood pressure medication because they're dealing with anxiety. They don't know how to deal or cope with the issues of their lives that are contributing to their physical health issues. So they have chronic physical health issues because they have not properly addressed their mental health. And just to speak from a more spiritual or a church background, biblically speaking, even the Bible talks about how the mind impacts what we do. It impacts how we function. There's many scriptures in the Bible on the mind and how it impacts us. So if we are going to still and another piece that people miss is that they separate the parts of who we are, which is why sometimes mental health issues don't get addressed in churches like they should, because they separate the parts of who we are. We separate our mental from our spiritual from our physical, and we try to operate as if they don't all impact each other, when the reality is that they very much do impact each other. So we have to be mindful as we are looking at mental illness in churches, particularly Black churches, that we cannot separate mental from physical, from spiritual and emotional. They all work together to help us function the way that we should. So we have to take care of our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health, and our spiritual health. Like, these are all parts of who we are. So if we take on that mindset, more so than just being dismissive of one part, then I believe that people can get what they need in churches, in ministries, religious settings, and even in other settings as well, on our jobs. If we stop separating mental from physical, from emotional and emotional and all the other parts of our well-being, if we stop separating them from each other and start understanding how they all work together to help us to function in healthier ways, then that's how we can function. So that's a really good question. I'm glad you asked. And right now I am going through my comments just to see if anyone else had any questions or comments. Yes, we need to be tactful in our approach. That is a very good point. We need to be tactful in how we approach the issue, but we do need to address it. So, with that being said, I love educating my community. I love educating various organizations, churches, ministries, whatever setting you have. I would love to come and educate, do more educational pieces on mental health, how we can address it in healthy ways in various arenas. So if this is something that you think is helpful, please let me know. Inbox me here on Facebook. You can inbox me or direct message me on Instagram. You can leave comments on my mental health flyers if you have comments there or questions about things. If you want to request the services of me coming out to actually provide more mental health education, I am so excited to do that. I think it's a very hot topic, but it's one that we have to address. Just like we address every other part of who we are, we need to address our mental health. So please, if you have not already, I want to encourage you to share this video today. Thank you so much for everybody that has enjoyed it, has joined me this morning. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for sharing the videos. Please share them. Please make people aware of what you're learning. And please let them know that if they have questions, I'm available to answer the questions to the best of my ability. I don't proclaim to know everything about mental health, but I know enough to kind of help you get going in the right direction if you need some help. So please feel free to reach out. And I definitely will continue to share this information myself. But let's be educated. Let's be mindful. Let's be kind. Let's be considerate. Let's be careful. And let's be assertive about making sure the people that we love, we care about, those around us are getting the help that they need with regards to their mental illness and their mental health. Let's make sure that we are getting the help that we need. If you've heard anything here that's been helpful, share it. Share the videos and let me know how it's been helpful to you. I love to hear your feedback, and I would love to come and help educate you even more. So with that being said, thank you so very much for joining me for Mental Health Monday today. Please remember that your mental health matters. Have an amazing week.